Chapter 41:17. Xiao Hua quickly rushed to the A71 hall. When he entered the hall, he didn't forget to look at the stone wall. Sure enough, there was another faint bloodstain there, and it smelled a little bloody. "Oh! Fellow Daoist, why did you turn back? Fellow Daoist Long Mai didn't come back with you?" At this time, in the A71 hall, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua and Devil Spirit Xiao Hua were each holding a spirit fruit and tasting it with interest. Hearing footsteps, they were very surprised to see Xiao Hua walk in. Phoenix Body Xiao Hua asked with a smile, "Big brother, why do you have injuries on your body?" Xiao Hua asked even more. Xiao Hua's gaze was extremely complicated as he looked at the two people. He couldn't bear it in his heart. After all, it was his clone. However, after a few breaths, Xiao Hua said faintly, "Fellow Daoist Long Mai went to A31 first. You guys go and meet him now." After speaking, Xiao Hua pointed to the hall door leading to A31, and he turned and walked to another hall door. "Fellow Daoist," Phoenix Body Xiao Hua said curiously, "we will go now. However, fellow Daoist, are you not going to A31? "I naturally have to go," Xiao Hua replied without turning his head. "However, before going, this Xiao wants to find something." "Okay, then big brother, go quickly and come back quickly. We will wait for big brother in A31 hall." Devil Spirit Xiao Hua said with a smile and pulled Phoenix Body Xiao Hua in the direction Xiao Hua pointed. They didn't know that they were now walking on a road of no return. Xiao Hua walked out of the hall and quickly came to A28. Sure enough, the second Xiao Hua was no longer here. Moreover, there was a crossbow and a small box in the cauldron. Especially, next to the cauldron, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua's corpse was full of bloody holes lying on the ground. In front of him, there were 5 big words written in blood, "Murderer's Original Body Xiao Hua." Xiao Hua raised his hand and took the crossbow and the small box. He squatted down expressionlessly and erased the 5 words written by Phoenix Body Xiao Hua. He dipped his hand in the blood on the ground and wrote, "Go to A31. Then, when he got up, he saw a neatly folded cloak next to the cauldron. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to pick up the cloak and put it on. Then, he raised his hand and picked up Phoenix Body Xiao Hua's corpse and quickly left A28. Immediately after, Xiao Hua walked back to A71. At this time, the bone-honing Xiao Hua had already fallen dead beside the 3-faced statue. Xiao Hua's other hand similarly picked up his corpse and walked to the corridor outside the eaves of the Star Moon Palace. When Xiao Hua casually flung his hand, the bone-honing Xiao Hua and Phoenix Body Xiao Hua's corpses crashed into the turbulence outside the Star Moon Palace and instantly disappeared. After doing this, Xiao Hua turned around and quickly rushed to the second floor. He casually found a hall door and entered. Then, according to the same pattern as the first floor of the Star Moon Palace, he easily found the hall B31. When Xiao Hua entered the hall door, he was welcomed by a small pavilion. Xiao Hua leaned forward and saw Dragon Vein Xiao Hua standing on the high platform of A31. He also happened to see Xiao Hua with a glance. "Fellow." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua was a little surprised and shouted, "Didn't you go to A31? Unfortunately, before Dragon Vein Xiao Hua finished speaking, Xiao Hua raised his hand. Boom! A black arrow shot out and nailed Dragon Vein Xiao Hua to the high platform. "Ah!" Dragon Vein Xiao Hua screamed. Outside the hall, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua and Devil Spirit Xiao Hua exclaimed, "Fellow Dragon Vein, what's going on?" Xiao Hua hurriedly squatted down and used his cloak to cover his face. At this time, he heard Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's weak voice again. It's Xiao Hua. The main body killed I." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua hadn't finished speaking when a burst of hurried footsteps came from outside the hall again. Needless to say, this was the third Xiao Hua walking in. Sure enough, the third Xiao Hua's extremely innocent voice sounded out, "Fellow Daoist Phoenix Physique, what's going on? Why are you all here? Damn it, you're still asking us what happened. Weren't you the one who killed fellow Dragon Vein? Weren't we also asked to come here by you? What are you pretending for?" I just heard a rumbling sound and hurried over from A31. How could I kill fellow Dragon Vein? What's more, where is this place? I have never been here before. You keep pretending. You said you wanted I and fellow Daoist devil spirit to come to A31. Isn't this A31? Hearing this, Xiao Hua sneered and slowly stood up. He extended his crossbow. Quickly dodge. The third Xiao Hua shouted. His figure hurriedly rolled on the ground and rolled towards the hall door above the high platform. As for Xiao Hua's crossbow, with two loud boom sounds, Xiao Hua's phoenix body Xiao Hua and devil spirit Xiao Hua were killed in A31's palace hall. Soon after, Xiao Hua raised his hand again. Boom! A black arrow chased after the third Xiao Hua and nailed into the stone wall. Seeing the third Xiao Hua disappear, Xiao Hua lifted his leg and jumped down from the second floor of the pavilion and chased after it. However, after looking for several hall doors, he finally walked to a hall door and looked at it with a cold smile. He clearly remembered that he should be hiding inside this hall door, so he didn't hesitate to raise his hand. Boom! The crossbow vibrated and the black arrow rushed into the hall door. However, the miserable scream he expected didn't come. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed and hurriedly rushed into the hall. However, he saw that his black arrow fell on the bluestone, but there was no figure of the third Xiao Hua inside this hall. Damn it! How could Xiao Hua not know that he had already missed the real hall door where the third Xiao Hua was hiding? He hurriedly turned around to search. Unfortunately, after searching for a while, he did not find anything. Xiao Hua simply rushed towards the corridor of the Star Moon Palace. Sure enough, just as he walked out of the door of the palace with the rainbow clouds, he saw the third Xiao Hua standing at the steps. Xiao Hua did not hesitate to raise his hand. Whoosh! The black arrow in the crossbow shot towards the third Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, at the same time that Xiao Hua raised his hand, the third Xiao Hua seemed to be on guard. He suddenly lowered his head and the black brilliance of the black arrow brushed past the third Xiao Hua's head. It fell into the countercurrent outside the corridor and immediately disappeared without a trace. The third Xiao Hua hurriedly fled into the distance. Xiao Hua took out a black arrow from his cloak and placed it on the crossbow. He followed the third Xiao Hua and chased after him. Seeing that there was a turn in front of him, Xiao Hua was delighted. Boom! The sound of the crossbow rang out again. A black light shot towards the left side of the Star Moon Palace like lightning because Xiao Hua remembered that he had dodged to the left. However, the strange thing was that the third Xiao Hua didn't dodge to the left. Instead, he rushed to the right and disappeared. Damn it! Xiao Hua saw that the third Xiao Hua didn't stop at the turn. He knew that what he had encountered was different from what he had done before. He cursed and chased after him. However, just as Xiao Hua reached the turn, a light whoosh sound rang out and a sword light suddenly pierced towards him. Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. He had guessed the process, but he hadn't guessed the result. Although the third Xiao Hua had fled to the right, he still hid at the turn. Seeing that his crossbow was knocked away by the third Xiao Hua's small sword, Xiao Hua helplessly waved his fist and fought with the third Xiao Hua. The result was needless to say. The third Xiao Hua was also Xiao Hua. He held a small sword in his hand. No matter if it was the first Xiao Hua or the third Xiao Hua, no one could win against them. In the end, Xiao Hua was forced to the side of the corridor by the third Xiao Hua. However, the third Xiao Hua's swordsmanship was like a flower. He asked coldly, Demon Emperor, if you tell me honestly how to get out of this Xingyue palace, I might spare your life. Kill them, kill them. Xiao Hua knew that he had no other way out. He could only shout in a low voice, as if he was roaring, only by killing them all will I be able to escape, damn it. The third Xiao Hua was also enraged. The small sword in his hand suddenly pierced towards Xiao Hua's chest. He shouted, even at this point, you still haven't forgotten to sow discord. Everyone in this Xingyue palace has been killed by you. Who else do you want to kill? Pu. The small sword pierced Xiao Hua's chest. That Xiao Hua raised his hand and smashed the wrist of the third Xiao Hua. The third Xiao Hua raised his leg in pain and kicked. Peng! Xiao Hua was kicked out of the corridor by the third Xiao Hua. Ah! Xiao Hua screamed in pain. His chest fell into the turbulence with the small sword in it. Xiao Hua's body floated in the turbulence. After an unknown period of time, Xiao Hua's figure emerged from the turbulence. Sigh. Xiao Hua was a little confused. He turned his head and looked around. It was also in this moment that an extremely dim green light flashed between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. It instantly disappeared. Xiao Hua muttered to himself, where is this? It was also at this moment that a voice that Xiao Hua was extremely familiar with, one that seemed to be in his dreams, rang out, "Husband. Go ahead and fly towards the depths of Kuhei Sea. You are no match for them. However, if you head east, you will definitely find a way out." Ah! Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly looked towards the direction of the voice. He saw the unforgettable Xue Xue flying out from a bamboo forest. Her face was snow-white. She stared at Xiao Hua and said word by word. Her eyes were filled with attachment, reluctance, and endless affection. A foundation establishment girl. Perfected Deity suddenly appeared not far behind Xiao Hua and laughed arrogantly. "What if I join in?" Another voice that Xiao Hua was extremely familiar with strangely rang out. Ah! Xiao Hua was completely dumbfounded. "Master, why are you here?" Of course, at the edge of the bamboo forest opposite Xue Xue, a white-haired, wrinkled face helplessly revealed himself. A pair of pitch-black eyes were filled with anger. -13. Chapter 41:18. A teacher for a day, a father for life. Helpless didn't even look at Xiao Hua. He only faced the two nascent soul cultivators and said indifferently, "Although I didn't teach you anything, but I see you as my disciple. You will always be my disciple. Are you all sick?" Kind child slapped his hand, and the pressure above his head surged, instantly making Helpless unable to move. "My husband, farewell." Xue Xue glanced at Xiao Hua, and her eyes turned red. Then, a layer of blood mist appeared in her body. With a loud boom, the blood mist suddenly exploded and covered Reverend Du-yi. "Wife." Xiao Hua looked at this heart-wrenching scene and raised his right hand slightly. Seeing the blood mist gushing out, he cried out sorrowfully. Boom tilde at this moment, beside kind child, Helpless also self-exploded, turning into a blood mist of the same shape and covering kind child. "Master." Xiao Hua's heart twitched again. He looked in the direction of the Kuei Sea in the distance and rushed over without hesitation. Woo woo. Xiao Hua's body flashed with lightning as he rushed forward crazily. There seemed to be an invisible barrier in the air in front of him. Xiao Hua fell into it and created thousands of fireflies and sparks, illuminating the air. In the light, the invisible barrier was torn apart. Inside the invisible barrier, a majestic palace slowly appeared. As Xiao Hua's figure swayed, Xiao Hua's figure strangely shattered and reformed, and a brand new Xiao Hua appeared in the air. In the midst of shattering and reforming, Dragon Vein Xiao Hua, Bone Tempering Xiao Hua, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua, and Devil Spirit Xiao Hua slowly appeared behind him. Xiao Hua shook his head, trying his best to get rid of the heavy feeling. However, the more he shook his head, the more confused his mind became. Xiao Hua could only raise his head. When he saw everything in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this the Star Moon Palace?" The majestic palace in the invisible barrier emitted a faint nine-colored light as it stood there. The three big words above the palace door could be seen clearly. It said Star Moon Palace. How is this possible? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Didn't Doshan Jun say that the Star Moon Palace is somewhere in the hidden immortal continent? How can it be in the space of the ruins? Fellow Daoist, have you forgotten? At this moment, another voice rang out from behind Xiao Hua. Zhu Qing from Zhai Xinglu said very clearly that the Star Moon Palace is a relic left behind by the upper realm in the three continents. The upper realm he spoke of, is it not the ruins here? Ah! Xiao Hua was shocked. He suddenly turned his head and saw Xiao Hua of the Dragon Vein standing behind him. Beside Dragon Vein Xiao Hua, Bone Tempering Xiao Hua, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua, and Devil Spirit Xiao Hua were also standing with smiles on their faces. You all. Xiao Hua was bewildered. He pointed at the four clones, not knowing what to say. The Devil Spirit Xiao Hua also smiled and said, "Brothers, let's speed up." When the Devil Emperor flew to this place, he actually disappeared without a trace. He must have discovered the Star Moon Palace hidden in the void. He must be hiding in the Star Moon Palace. Let's hurry over and kill him, so that we can take revenge for injuring us earlier. When Xiao Hua brought his 4 doppelgangers and flew towards the so-called Star Moon Palace at an extremely fast speed, a strange black shadow appeared outside the invisible barrier. This black shadow was extremely faint, as if it had no form or substance. This black shadow looked at Xiao Hua's fleeing figure and opened its mouth. A golden light mixed with blood-red light flew out from the invisible barrier and landed in the black shadow. That black shadow trembled slightly and groaned softly, as if it was enjoying it very much. However, after a moment, the black shadow made a strange noise again. Damn it! This Xiao Hua. What kind of reincarnation is he? This is about to be broken down by a tribulation. Why hasn't his physical body been completely shattered yet? Why can the 4 clones be broken down every time we pass through an illusion? When exactly will I be able to completely devour his essence? I can't possibly let him endlessly kill my clones here, right? However, it only lasted for a short while before the voice burst into laughter again. Luckily, I had nothing to do, so I went down to the lower realm to take a stroll and happened to meet such a human with such abundant energy essence. Luckily, this human was greedy for the cloning technique and didn't focus on the immemorial Tao. That's why I was able to take advantage of him. This human's essence is so strange. Just by relying on this human's essence, I should be able to obtain the devil fruit of the supreme heavenly demon, right? Haha, so what if he's the reincarnation of a heavenly god? Falling into the hands of a heavenly demon king like me, he's just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. A tribulation of tempering and killing is enough to crush a true heavenly god's essence. I just need to wait for a moment. When this human kills a few more of my clones and sends his essence into the illusion, I should be able to obtain the devil fruit, right? The closer we get to the end, the more we can't be careless. This human's luck is extremely strong. I definitely can't let him make a comeback. However, in this illusion, the sky is the universe and the earth is the earth. The so-called yin and yang and the 5 elements are the principles. All the illusions in the illusion are set up according to his thoughts. Everything is the same as what he thinks. What's special is that there's no divine ability of the supreme heavenly demon in the illusion at all. It's just a simple karmic cycle. No heavenly god can sense anything strange, so how can a little human cultivator notice it? I don't believe that a little human like him can escape from my hand. At this point, ripples appeared in the space behind the black shadow. The black shadow laughed and said, "Treasure's essence, come quickly. When the last number of calamities arrives, this lord will be able to bear the devil fruit." Haha, I don't know which heavenly god set this up. In the end, it actually benefited me. Sure enough, with a flash of a black shadow, the scenery of the entire space was completely void. And with the appearance of Xiao Hua's figure from the ripples, the bamboo forest, the pursuit, and the story of Shueishua's helplessness played out once again. Xiao Hua was still grief-stricken as he rushed into a new cycle of karma. Gradually, the whole space began to change. Black demonic patterns began to appear. These demonic patterns were different from the ones around the Devil Emperor. They were more ethereal, and each demonic pattern contained Sanskrit sounds. As the demonic patterns gathered toward the black shadow, indescribable small worlds appeared and disappeared rapidly in the light and shadow. The whole space was shrouded in a kind of solemnity, like the suffocation before the thunder tribulation. The black shadow was no longer as empty as before. Gradually, there was a sense of heaviness. The heaviness was so great that it was like everything in the world was condensed in the void. In the solemn atmosphere, there were tiny, almost imperceptible waves, like innumerable small insects appearing inexplicably in the whole space. The light and shadow that were still there were completely annihilated by the waves. An indescribable darkness gradually shrouded the space, as if a supreme devil kingdom had silently descended. Ha ha! In the silent darkness, the black shadow suddenly laughed strangely. After billions of years of waiting, I finally got everything I wanted. As soon as the laughter stopped, another weak ripple appeared from the side of the space. Xiao Hua's abnormally thin figure appeared. At the same time, everything that was engraved in Xiao Hua's bones and heart appeared again. Everything was exactly the same as before. The profound chi in the illusion gradually flew out. As long as it fell into the black shadow's body, Xiao Hua's profound chi would be absorbed by the black shadow, and the entire space would change again. At this moment, the entire space was vibrating, as if the black shadow couldn't suppress its joy. Husband. Just fly to the depths of the Kuai He Sea. You are not their opponent, but if you fly to the east, you will find a way out. Xue Xue was still that determined. Her face was snow-white, and her eyes gazed at Xiao Hua. She said word by word, her eyes were filled with attachment, reluctance, and endless affection. At this moment, if the previous cycle continued, it would definitely appear again and explode again. But at this moment, a green light lingered between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Thousands of soul strands flew out. Xiao Hua's eyes immediately brightened. However, the space was already abnormally dark. The soul strands flew out like moths to a flame. The strands broke, and the demonic patterns surged wildly, wanting to extinguish the only hope in this space. Xue Xue. Xiao Hua's voice was very vague and slow, but he said with extreme determination, I know that you are just an illusion. I also know that you can't hear what I am saying. In fact, when I fell into the illusion for the first time, I already knew what was happening in front of me. However, I was only clear-headed, for a moment. The moment I rushed out of the illusion of the Star Moon Palace, I knew what I was doing, and I knew what I needed to do. Previously, I used this moment of freedom to accumulate soul cultivation divine arts, preparing to break this illusion. However, after a few times, I knew that even if I accumulated more soul cultivation secret arts, I would not be able to break out of this illusion. Because this illusion is the tribulation of my primordial spirit, a battle between my primordial spirit. With my own strength, I am powerless to break out of it. However, just as I gave up, I saw you. Although you are an illusion, you are really standing in front of me. When I saw you, I could not help but think of everything that happened before. When I saw you, all my efforts, all my hardships, all my hopes turned to nothing. My only goal is to be able to hold your hand again and tell you my love. Now, I have finally accumulated an eon of tribulation. An eon of tribulation is not enough to support me to escape from the illusion. However, this eon of tribulation is enough for me to say these words to you, enough for me to hold your hand. As he spoke, Xiao Hua reached out his right hand to hold the right hand of the illusion of Xue Xue. He muttered again, there is no fate, no tribulation, no love, no hatred. My love, you are the netherworld lotus of the Yellow Springs, I am the guardian stone of the Blood Sea. I am willing to wait for you for billions of years, I am willing to accompany you for eternity. However, that time is too long, that loneliness is too cold. For your life, for your survival, I am not willing to accompany you until the end of time. I am not willing to accompany you for eternity. I am not willing to be the venerable one in the heavens, I am not willing to be the king of hell. For this moment, I am willing to give up everything. I only want to gently hold your hand and tell you, I love you. -13. Chapter 41:19. Xiao Hua said in a daze. His originally illusory figure gradually dissipated, but he still persisted in reaching out his right hand to grab the illusory Xue Xue's hand, even though he knew in his heart that in this lifetime, he would never be able to hold that warm and smooth hand again. Ha ha! The entire space was filled with a strange laughter that sounded like a night owl. It seemed to be extremely disdainful of human emotions like Xiao Hua. However, as soon as the laughter ended, Xiao Hua's surprised voice sounded. His originally blurry consciousness was suddenly maintained at that place. Furthermore, he could clearly feel that there was a kind of warmth and trembling coming from his hand. Xiao Hua lowered his head in disbelief. He saw that on his right hand, there was a broken heart-shaped symbol that was emitting a holy light in the pitch-black devil nation. Furthermore, as the light was projected onto Xue Xue's illusion, the same spot where Xiao Hua was holding Xue Xue's right hand also emitted a holy light. The two rays of light flickered as if they were breathing, but also as if they were talking to each other. As the light flickered, a beautiful woman's figure appeared in Xue Xue's illusion. The woman's face was filled with surprise and joy. Although the woman's appearance couldn't be seen, She was holding Xue Xue's right hand with the same strength as Xiao Hua's. Their fingers were interlocked. "My love." Xiao Hua moaned. He couldn't help but shout, "You're finally here." Boom. As soon as Xiao Hua's voice fell, the imprints on their right hands trembled at the same time. They flew into the air and landed between the two of them. With a boom, they transformed into a complete heart-shaped symbol. Swoosh. There was another crisp sound of a silver bottle shattering. From above the two of them, a pillar of moonlight pierced through the air and shone on the heart-shaped symbol. Then, the entire space rumbled like water. The moonlight was like water. In just a moment, the entire pitch-black Devil Nation was illuminated. HMPH, damned moon beast. Do you really think that you're the moon elder that the humans speak of? A voice that came from nowhere echoed in the space. Then, like a tide of demonic patterns, the sound of Sanskrit was like thunder. The entire space was turned upside down. How could moonlight defeat the Devil Nation? Could true love resist heartlessness? Seeing that the moonlight was about to be extinguished, Xiao Hua, who was holding the woman's hand, suddenly had his eyes lit up. He waved his left hand at a spot in the air. Under the dim moonlight, a black light that was even darker than the Devil Nation's flash. This time, Xiao Hua's figure was still faintly discernible, but his hand firmly held the woman's hand, blocking her behind him, and said coldly, "You think that because you're hiding in my master's body, I'm not willing to destroy my master's illusion? It's a pity that you only know how to look for my master in my memories, but you don't know that when I finally called out to my master, he had just condensed his core, and his appearance had already returned to his youth. And my memory of his old appearance is too deep. Whenever I think of master, I will think of his stern appearance, and I will never think of his youthful appearance. So that's how it is." Helplessly, the two halves of the body swayed back and forth in the air. From time to time, bubbles of demonic energy would fly out from the two halves of the body, but the entire Devil Nation was still deathly silent. Although the moonlight was still faintly flowing in the Devil Nation, even the previously brilliant heart shape was beginning to dim. "Could it be, you already knew?" The heavenly demon probed, "Is it really as you said, that you've been accumulating power to counterattack in this cycle of karma for countless years?" Strands of essence chi floated over from the Devil Nation, but because of Xiao Hua's existence, these essence chi didn't fall into the heavenly demon's mouth, but instead instinctively fell into Xiao Hua's body. Unfortunately, this essence chi was so little that Xiao Hua's nothingness didn't change much. "That's right." Xiao Hua took a breath and nodded. "The first time I woke up, I realized it, but I only had a moment to resist. I was powerless to do anything. Fortunately, after a few times, I realized that I had a secret technique that I could accumulate and use, so every time I woke up, I would use my magic power to accumulate the secret technique. Unfortunately, your supernatural power is too boundless. Even after accumulating power for countless years, I could only accumulate enough power to say one sentence and the strength to raise my arm." Speaking of this, Xiao Hua said indifferently, "The Devil Emperor doesn't have such a powerful supernatural power. If you're not the Devil Emperor, who are you? Damn it." The heavenly demon was a little regretful. "With just a sentence and the strength to raise your arm, you can break the illusion that I painstakingly created. I really don't believe it. The one who defeated you is not me." Xiao Hua said word by word, "The one who defeated you is the love of the human race. Behind me, there is a sea of love that you can't imagine. This sea of love is enough to destroy all the demons." Ha ha ha. The heavenly demon laughed wildly. "It's just that the moon beast is meddling in other people's business. If I sneak into the moon world one day, I'll skin it, pull out its tendons, cut its meat and barbecue it. Now, you should take care of yourself first. Even if you broke my illusion, do you still have the strength to fight back?" Xiao Hua smiled strangely and replied, "Why don't you guess?" Seeing that Xiao Hua was so calm, the heavenly demon was a little speechless, as if the situation had become awkward. Behind Xiao Hua was naturally not the real Xue Xue, but Yu Mingxin from the fragrant cult. At this time, Yu Mingxin was holding Xiao Hua's hand, which seemed to be neither there nor there. Listening to the conversation between Xiao Hua and the heavenly demon, she had long forgotten her surprise of appearing here for no reason. She looked at Xiao Hua's almost transparent body, which was still like a mountain in front of her, and tears fell down uncontrollably. She really wanted to dig out her own flesh and give it to Xiao Hua. However, she didn't dare to move. If even Xiao Hua couldn't deal with the enemy, how could she be his opponent? However, she had already made up her mind. As long as Xiao Hua opened his mouth, she would definitely die for Xiao Hua. At this time, Xiao Hua smiled and said to the heavenly demon in a low voice, "You should tell me who you are. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to say it in the future." Chimpate. The heavenly demon sneered, "With just a trace of your profound chi, do you think you can go against me? Why do you think I'm talking so much nonsense with you?" Xiao Hua asked back meaningfully. The heavenly demon didn't pay attention to him. His whole body was trembling as he replied, "Who knows? Maybe you're a chatterbox. I'm waiting for my doppelganger." Xiao Hua smiled, looking very honest. The heavenly demon was not moved. He looked at Xiao Hua with interest. "Then why don't you show me your doppelganger?" "Ha ha." Xiao Hua laughed, then said in a low voice, "Mingxin, I'm sorry." "Oh." Yu Mingxin stared blankly. Suddenly, her palm tightened. A huge suction force came from Xiao Hua's hand. The magic power in her body, as well as something she didn't understand, were all sucked out. However, why would Yu Mingxin care about this? She thought with incomparable sweetness in her heart, He called me Mingxin, you." The heavenly demon seemed to have understood something and said in shock, "You can actually use magic? The path of Taoism is broad and profound. How can you demons know?" Xiao Hua proudly smiled, and waved his left hand again. Woo! A black light flashed, and the devil kingdom that the heavenly demon was barely supporting, as well as his own body, finally collapsed. Fuck. This sovereign's biggest mistake was to not let your devil blade murder stay by your side. The heavenly demon's body collapsed, and he hurriedly turned into black gas. When he was preparing to abandon everything in front of him and escape, he still didn't forget to regret. "That's because you were greedy. You have to get the devil blade first." Xiao Hua's devil blade surged out a myriad of devil chi and black flames, pouncing towards the entire space. He was still sneering. Following the collapse of the heavenly demon's body, everything in the devil kingdom, no matter if it was the devil patterns, Sanskrit chants, or fluctuations, also collapsed. Even outside the devil kingdom, the star moon palace in the void distorted and collapsed at the same time. The remaining profound chi inside turned into brilliance and fell into Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua didn't stop. His figure shook, and phoenix body Xiao Hua, dragon vein Xiao Hua, bone tempering Xiao Hua, and devil spirit Xiao Hua also turned into phantoms and flew out, rushing towards the heavenly demon. Moreover, at this time, outside the devil kingdom that was split open. Rumble. A huge rumbling sound rose again. 9 huge cauldrons appeared in the night sky, and the 5-colored true chi turned into 5-colored clouds, covering the space within 1,000 miles. This was nothing. An 8th-grade lotus throne surged with supreme Buddhist light and hung above the 9 cauldrons. Inside the Buddhist light, 10,000 Buddhas cried out in grief. Each and every one of them opened their compassionate eyes and looked at the collapsing devil kingdom. Among the 7 colors, a bright green color floated there like a light smoke. At the tip of the YA brush, a green vitality appeared like a seed. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua, Confucian Cultivator Xiao Hua, and Buddha body respectively stood in 3 different directions of the heavenly demon, their faces expressionless and on guard. "I really didn't lie to you, heavenly demon," Xiao Hua said rather innocently. "No matter what, we are old acquaintances. How could I lie to you? I am indeed waiting for my 3 doppelgangers to arrive." Roar. How could the heavenly demon talk nonsense with Xiao Hua? The only regret in his heart was that when he was hit by the devil blade, he didn't hesitate to abandon Xiao Hua, no longer maintaining the devil kingdom, and hurriedly escaped. Now that Xiao Hua's doppelgangers had arrived, he was hit again. Not only did Xiao Hua's profound chi have to escape from his body, even his heavenly demon body was in danger. The heavenly demon's body swayed, turned into a supreme demonic body, and rushed out of the devil kingdom. Boom! Unfortunately, just as he came in contact with the brilliance of the 9 cauldrons, he was immediately blasted down. However, the heavenly demon only flipped in midair, and flew to another place. Namo Metriya Buddha. With a Buddhist chant, the phantom of an 8th grade lotus throne fell down and destroyed 10% of the heavenly demon's body. Roar! The heavenly demon screamed, and his figure strangely disappeared. -13. Chapter 41:20. Seeing this, Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua sneered, turning the void into a void again. Heavenly demon is indeed a heavenly demon. While speaking, Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua opened his mouth and tens of millions of green seal characters rushed out. As Bai pointed at them, the green seal characters immediately disappeared. Boom boom. In the rumbling sound, green lines rolled and appeared, revealing the heavenly demon's figure. At this time, the heavenly demon's figure shrank by another 10%. Formation. Hearing Xiao Hua's cold shout, the 9 cauldrons once again let out a rumbling sound, rolling in the air one after another. The 9 cauldrons spewed out thick 9-colored light pillars, sealing off the heavenly demon and even the collapsed devil nation. Form. Buddha body raised his hand and took out the 10,000 Buddha paintings Kasaya. The Kasaya instantly became empty and tens of thousands of Buddha lords appeared in the air, blocking the space outside the 9 cauldrons. The 8th-grade lotus also broke down, turning into 8 petals and falling among the 10,000 Buddha lords, urging Buddha light to force the heavenly demon. Catcher. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua didn't have a soul weapon to kill, but with a wave of his hand, 13 huge green seal characters flew out and turned into huge thunderbolts. These thunderbolts flashed and condensed into the appearance of 13 gods. These thunderbolts flashed in the air like pythons, trapping the heavenly demon in the center. Every time the thunderbolts came with the sound of gods and ghosts, the heavenly demon couldn't help but tremble. Refine. Xiao Hua didn't stop at all. He chanted the incantation and the 3 doppelgangers urged their divine abilities. The Buddha light mixed with innate true chi entangled with the green seal characters and surged violently towards the heavenly demon. Woo woo. Everything fell into the heavenly demon and the devil country. An indescribable sobbing sound came out and the whole space began to tremble. Even Yu Mingxin, who was hiding behind Xiao Hua, turned pale and showed extreme fear in her eyes. Green robe fellow Daoist. Xiao Hua smiled faintly and pulled the green-robed Xiao Hua out of the space, shouting, "Please send Yu Mingxin into the Kunlun mirror to rest." All right. Green-robed Xiao Hua stayed in the space because of his heavy injuries, so he didn't fall into the heavenly demon's illusion. He agreed and took out the Kunlun mirror. With a flash of light, Yu Mingxin was sucked into the mirror. Yu Mingxin pulled her hand out of Xiao Hua's hand. Her heart felt empty, as if she had lost something. The heavenly devil was being refined in the Buddha, Confucian, and soul formations. Every time a wisp of black smoke was released, a corresponding devil pattern from the devil kingdom would fall into it. Then, layers of devil shadows would appear. The demonic shadow was filled with killing, peace, savagery, love, hatred, and so on. It was as if everything in the world was contained in this small wisp of black gas and demonic patterns. When these demonic figures disappeared, the black gas and demonic patterns also disappeared, and a wisp of extremely pure essence appeared within the 3 formation. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and the profound qi entered his body. His illusory figure began to solidify. After a full 81 days of refining, Xiao Hua's figure finally recovered. At the same time, Dragon Vein Xiao Hua, Bone Tempering Xiao Hua, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua, and Devil Spirit Xiao Hua also recovered. Looking at the heavenly devil inside the formation, it was no longer as incorporeal as before. It had turned into a slightly turbid black fog. This black fog still had many devil patterns dancing with the formation. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the black fog and he said, "Fellow Taoists, from the previous demonic shadow, we can see that this heavenly devil's origin is not small. It used illusions to lure and kill countless cultivators. Now, we have taken back our profound qi. However, there is still a lot of profound qi hidden in the heavenly devil's body. It is not good to stay here for a long time. I want to take the heavenly devil into the space and refine it. After I refine all of its profound qi, I will share it with fellow Taoists. How about it?" Good. The several clones nodded in agreement. Thus, Xiao Hua waved his hands and hundreds of lightning bolts flashed outside the formation. These lightning bolts were like surging pythons that surrounded the formation. Then, they gradually shrank until they were only a few feet in size. Xiao Hua's mind rolled and the lightning balls immediately fell into the space. Who? Not only did Xiao Hua let out a sigh of relief, but all the clones also let out sighs of relief. Although the previous 3 formations trapped the Heavenly Devil, everyone didn't dare to relax. Although the Heavenly Devil itself didn't have the power to attack, it was good at transformation and knew how to bewitch. The slightest carelessness could cause cultivators to fall into an illusion and kill themselves. And if the Heavenly Devil fell into Xiao Hua's space, even if it was 10 times stronger, it wouldn't be able to escape. However, after a moment, Xiao Hua faintly smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, don't be too relaxed. Our space is also a space, and it must be related to the Devil realm where the Heavenly Devil came from. Before I completely refine the Heavenly Devil, we can't be careless. Big brother." Devil Spirit Xiao Hua hurriedly shouted, "Little brother can devour the Heavenly Devil and get everything Big brother knows. Similarly, little brother can also get his magical power from devouring the Heavenly Devil." "Don't worry." Xiao Hua nodded, "After I rest for a while, I will find a way to separate the Heavenly Devil's devil chi from the devil pattern and give you what you need. Compensate you for the loss in the illusion, fellow Daoist." Bone-honing Xiao Hua hurriedly shouted, "You were the first to kill me in the illusion." Xiao Hua angrily glared at the bone-honing Xiao Hua, then looked at the phoenix-bodied Xiao Hua and the others. He said word by word, "Although the dreamland is just a dreamland, it really gave us a wake-up call. You and I are from the same roots. Why are you so anxious to kill each other? When I wasn't ready, I rashly separated my primordial spirit, which caused the great calamity of today's primordial spirit battle. We must take this as a warning. Before the hidden danger of the primordial spirit separation is eliminated, we must not have any more twists and turns. And we must remember, we are one person, no matter when, even if there are other changes when I ascend in the future, we must never be enemies with each other." "Good. We understand." The avatars agreed in unison. "He, fellow Daoist, please take a look." Hearing Xiao Hua being so serious, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua waved his hand, took out a spatial ring, and handed it to Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua could read Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's thoughts, at this time, he already understood that avatars were avatars. He had to respect them first, only then could they truly become independent cultivator. Therefore, Xiao Hua took the spatial ring and checked it with his divine sense. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Is this the orthodoxy of the 8 great sects? Yes. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua said with a smile, "In the 10 years that fellow Daoist disappeared, this one, the little monk, and fellow Daoist soul cultivator assisted General Sun in the southwest border, rescuing the 8 great sects from the siege of the devil race. These sects were the same as the White Cloud Temple's sect master. They all wanted to use their orthodoxy to exchange with our Fortune Gates sect protecting formation. Deferentially, this one will do his best to exchange with them. Haha, good." Xiao Hua put away the spatial ring and said with a smile, "The sects of the ruins specialize in cultivating the primordial spirit. Their cultivation technique will definitely be useful to us. Moreover, the ruins is the upper realm. Their orthodoxy must have something that our Tao Gate can use as a reference. This transaction is really worth it." Speaking of this, Xiao Hua looked at the 3 avatars and asked tentatively, "There are 10 sects in the southwest border. 10 years ago, when I was fighting with the Devil Emperor, the Devil race had besieged these 10 sects. Now, our Fortune Gate has helped 8 sects escape from the Devil race. What about the other 2 sects? What is the situation of our Fortune Gate's disciples?" This. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, then said, "It's a long story. We should return to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range." "Oh, Soaring Dragon Mountain Range?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Not only did you move the Fortune Gate to the ruins, you even changed the ruins mountain range to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. It's not a matter of moving or not." Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua answered, "Our Fortune Gate's disciples are fighting for the ruins. We need a place to stay. We can't enter the 8 sects foundations as we wish, But finding a barren mountain range to stay is still easy. Moreover, we don't plan to leave the Fortune Gate's descendants in the ruins. Many other sects' disciples wanted to join our Fortune Gate, but we didn't agree. En. Xiao Hua nodded, then looked around and ordered, "Fellow Taoists, we will search carefully within 10,000 li radius. Don't let the Heavenly Devil's avatar escape." Yes. The various avatars were already prepared. Hearing Xiao Hua's order, each of them executed their divine abilities and carefully searched within 10,000 li radius, whether it was in the void or in mid-air. Xiao Hua even opened his delusion breaker law eye to search inch by inch. Sure enough, in a short while, the Heavenly Devil's avatars hidden in the void were found one by one, and all of them were devoured by Xiao Hua. After searching 10,000 li radius, they found a total of 8 avatars. Not daring to be careless, Xiao Hua's avatars once again searched 10,000 li radius until they found no more avatars. However, Xiao Hua stood in the void, looking at the place where the Star Moon Palace had been. Although everything seemed like a dream, it was deeply imprinted in his mind. He sighed softly, knowing that the Heavenly Devil had been planning for this place for more than a decade. It was impossible for him to not have a backup plan. Moreover, the Heavenly Devil must have left some avatars in the Sky of Freedom. His divine abilities were limited, it was impossible for him to completely exterminate the Heavenly Devil. Chimpage. Xiao Hua snorted coldly, "Even if I don't refine the Heavenly Devil, he won't let me go in the future. Then why don't I refine him? My divine abilities have yet to reach major completion, but when my cultivation becomes stronger, would I still be afraid of him? Heavenly Devil, our Heavenly Devil, I'm looking forward to it. When will you come to see me again? Tribulation?" After saying that, Xiao Hua's figure turned into a rainbow, flying into the distance with the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua. In the first light of dawn, within the dewdrops on a blade of grass, a wisp of dim black qi, less than an inch long, trembled slightly as the sunlight shone on it, like a trembling eyelash. When the dewdrop's water vapor dissipated, the black qi also hid in the void, slowly disappearing. The Heavenly Devil's 9th avatar finally escaped Xiao Hua's search. It was unknown whether he had returned to the Da Heavenly Devil Kingdom or if he had other plans. -13. Chapter 41-21. In a bamboo forest, under a bamboo pavilion, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged at the center of the pavilion under the scorching sun. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua and his other avatars were not present, only Sun Jian stood respectfully at the side. On the other side of the mountain peak where the bamboo forest was, there was another majestic mountain range that stretched across the land, resembling a sleeping dragon. Above the mountain range, 2 lightning boats were hovering in the air, emitting faint rumbling noises. Vaguely, the Fortune Gate disciples on the lightning boats were flying around, either setting up defenses or patrolling the area. Amidst their orderly movements, there was an austere atmosphere. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes. Although he did not release his divine sense, he saw everything with his eyes. It had been 3 days since he returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. His avatars had temporarily returned to his body to rest. After all, he had been refining the Heavenly Devil's essence in his space, and his avatars would be nourished as long as they were in his body. In these 3 days, Sun Jian had also reported the situation at the Fortune Gate and the southwest border to Xiao Hua. Only now did Xiao Hua know that when he had chased after the Archdevil Emperor with his 3 avatars, he had fallen into the Heavenly Devil's meticulously laid-out illusion. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, Soul cultivator Xiao Hua, and Buddha Subhuti had lost contact with him, and their search was fruitless. After a short discussion, they had immediately caught up to the lightning boat and explained the matter to Sun Jian. Sun Jian turned pale with fright, and wanted to turn around and search for Xiao Hua, but scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua and the others knew that although Xiao Hua was missing, his life was not in danger. Moreover, the Heavenly Devil Emperor was powerful, and only Sun Jian's 3 avatars could restrain him. The other Fortune Gate disciples were no match for the Heavenly Devil Emperor, so they stopped Sun Jian. Sun Jian then discussed with the White Cloud Monastery's disciples. Since the Heavenly Devil Emperor had attacked the 10 southwestern sects at the same time, the other sects must have been surrounded by the Heavenly Devil Emperor. They hoped that the White Cloud Monastery and Fortune Gate disciples would join hands to rescue the other sect. The White Cloud Monastery understood that without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. Sect Chief Bai Shan followed Sun Jian and led the two sects' disciples to the nearest White Cloud Monastery's Light Melody Palace to rescue the Heavenly Devil Emperor. Sure enough, the Light Melody Palace was also trapped by the Heavenly Devil Emperor's formation, and could not send any disciples to ask for help. The White Cloud Monastery and Fortune Gate's disciples' arrival was akin to sending charcoal in snowy weather. After several months of fierce battle, the three sects finally repelled the Heavenly Devil Emperor. Moreover, what made Sun Jian feel at ease was that other than the Demon Monarch, the Demon Emperor who disappeared at the same time as Xiao Hua did not appear. Following that, the White Cloud Monastery, Soft Melody Palace, and Fortune Gate's disciples joined hands to rescue Fuwu Ridge. In this manner, the White Cloud Monastery, Soft Melody Palace, Fuwu Ridge, Curved Cloud Pavilion, Bright Dawn Hall, Jingbo Mountain, Zhonhong Faction, and Water Cloud Sect were rescued from the Devil Clan's sea. In the last few years, the White Cloud Monastery, Soft Melody Palace, and the rest of the 8 sects did not send out all their forces. Instead, they sent out their elite disciples to assist the Fortune Gate. They once again focused their attention on their sect's defenses. Under the guidance of Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, the 8 sects laid down the Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation at their respective mountain gates to guard against the devil race's invasion. Of course, during these 10 years, the devil race had returned to besiege the Soft Tune Palace and the other sects. In the end, all of them were defeated by the Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation. However, the cruelty of war was not to be underestimated. After more than a decade of war, more than half of the 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples had fallen. Currently, there were less than 50,000 disciples guarding the 2 lightning boats. Xiao Hua flew all the way back. Because he had just recovered, he did not have the time to investigate the wandering souls in the space. Now that he had heard Sun Jian's report, he could already imagine the hardships of the war. He retracted his gaze from the lightning boats and sighed, "Sun Jian, it's been hard on you this time." This Xiao thanks the general on behalf of the Fortune Gate's disciples. Sun Jian was terrified. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Master Xiao, although this one is a Confucian cultivator and an immortal palace's true monarch, this one has received a lot of help from Master Xiao. The Fortune Gate's disciples also respect this one. This one can lead the Fortune Gate's disciples to fight for the human race in the ancient ruins. This is 100 times better than leading immortal soldiers and immortal generals to kill the Tao Gate's cultivators on the hidden immortal mainland. This one is willing to do all of this. Master Xiao does not need to thank me for this." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "It's good that you have such intentions. This old man will definitely not treat you unfairly. Yes, this one understands." Sun Jian solemnly replied. Since Xiao Hua's return, Sun Jian felt as if Xiao Hua had been reborn. That aura of a saint on the inside and a monarch on the outside was undoubtedly revealed in his every action. Sun Jian could not help but feel like he was looking at a high mountain. In his entire life, he had only felt this kind of feeling in front of one person, and that was the immortal emperor. Now that this feeling appeared again, Sun Jian believed without hesitation that Xiao Hua would become another immortal emperor in the future. Of course, Xiao Hua did not know what Sun Jian was thinking. He was a little puzzled and asked, could it be that in these 10 years, that devil emperor never appeared? Indeed, he never appeared. Sun Jian nodded. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy for us to rescue the 8 sect. That's strange. Xiao Hua was a little bewildered. Until now, he still did not know when he had fallen into the Sky Devil's ambush. He also did not know if the Devil Emperor he was chasing at that time was the real Devil Emperor. Xiao Hua naturally did not tell Sun Jian about his encounter with the Sky Devil in detail. At this moment, Sun Jian carefully said, presumably, Master Xiao injured him that day, and he saw that Master Xiao's 3 old friends were here. He knew that he was not a match for them, so he did not dare to appear. That's the only way I can think of it. Xiao Hua nodded. My 3 old friends are the Devil Emperor's nemesis, so it is normal that the Devil Emperor does not dare to appear. Also, The ruins conference hall only sent 20,000 disciples and no other assistants. Yes. Sun Jian nodded. Other than the 20,000 disciples and the basic supplies used by the ruins army, the conference hall does not have any other assistants. However, according to the information obtained by White Cloud Monastery and the other sects, the ruins' current situation is worrying. The conference hall sending 20,000 disciples is already not bad. Oh, they also sent the conference hall's military order, inviting Master Xiao to the conference hall. As he said this, Sun Jian took out a purple token and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua glanced at it, then casually handed it back to Sun Jian. This old man doesn't know how to arrange troops, so why should I go to the conference hall? Do you want me to bicker with them? If the conference hall needs it, General Sun can go there yourself. Yes, this one understands. Sun Jian did not dare to decline and accepted the token. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Hua asked again, "Is the 50,000 Fortune Gate disciples enough?" Sun Jian answered without hesitation, "Other than the 50,000 Fortune Gate disciples, there are 20,000 Conference Hall disciples under my command. Other than that, the White Cloud Monastery and the other 8 sects sent another 80,000 disciples. However, my Fortune Gate's disciples use the lightning boats as the formation base, so other sects' disciples cannot help. Therefore, although there are more people, their battle strength is lacking, so this one did not dare to make a decision on the 2 most difficult battles at the Snow Chopping Gate and Yong'an Mountain." Xiao Hua nodded. "Then this old man will give you another 100,000 disciples." "Ah, so many." Sun Jian was shocked. He knew that Xiao Hua would send out more disciples, but he did not expect it to be 100,000. Xiao Hua did not explain. He flew up into the air and took out the Kunlun mirror. As the mirror vibrated, 100,000 disciples flew out and lined up neatly in the air. "General Sun." Xiao Hua raised a finger and said, "I'll leave these disciples to you today. This old man has just recovered from a serious injury, so I need to enter seclusion for the time being. The remaining 2 sects will depend on you and these disciples to rescue them. Of course, you can rest assured that on the day the army departs, this old man will send 3 of his good friends to accompany you." "Many thanks, Teacher Xiao." Sun Jian was overjoyed. He bowed respectfully and ordered the lightning boat to come over. Xiao Hua said, "While this old man is in seclusion, if there is nothing important, there is no need to report to me. You can decide for yourself. Also, Fortune Gate disciples are not to approach this old man's seclusion area." "Yes, this one understands." Sun Jian respectfully replied. "This one will give the order immediately." "Good. Go and train these disciples." Xiao Hua nodded. "Let Liu Yi and the others come over." Naturally, Liu Yi and the other disciples were the happiest with Xiao Hua's return, but they were Sun Jian's subordinates. Without Sun Jian's orders, they did not dare to come over. Now that Xiao Hua had given the order, Sun Jian naturally had to let them pass. In just a short while, Fu Jiwen and the other personal disciples, as well as the Black Bear, Golden Eagle, and White Lion, flew over to greet Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua had already seen that all his disciples were present, and was overjoyed. Looking at these disciples who had experienced the flames of war, their temperament was completely different from before, he was even more gratified. Wu Tian, Fu Jiwen, and the others roughly recounted their experiences in the past 10 years. Since it was war, there was naturally blood. Although Xiao Hua's disciples did not die, injuries were unavoidable. Even Yuan Ya was almost killed by the Devil Army. In short, these disciples had experienced more life and death situations in the past 10 years than several thousand years. These life and death experiences were extremely beneficial to their cultivation, and everyone had made considerable progress. After listening, Xiao Hua gave them a few words of encouragement, and gave them a large number of medicinal pills refined by Xiao Guo. Then, he asked them to stay behind and give them face-to-face guidance. A few days later, after passing on the strength, Xiao Hua gave them the witch dolls refined by soul cultivator Xiao Hua, and ordered them to keep them close to their bodies. Of course, Xiao Hua did not explain the use of these witch dolls, so as to avoid these disciples from slacking off. After the group of disciples thanked Xiao Hua and left, Xiao Hua waved his sleeve and his figure disappeared. Light smoke slowly rose from the bamboo forest in the distance, completely covering the scenery of the mountain peak. Xiao Hua's figure landed in the bamboo forest, but did not directly return to the bamboo pavilion. Instead, he frowned and looked at the green bamboos that pierced straight into the sky. These green bamboos were different from the ones Xiao Hua had seen before. The bamboo joints were very long, at least several feet long, and the connections between the joints were also thick. As for the bamboo leaves, they were small, and even somewhat oval. When the wind blew, not only did a kind of fragrance hit his face, but the rustling sound made Xiao Hua feel as if it was the sound of nature. -13. Chapter 41-22. Dozens of years passed in the blink of an eye, but in Xiao Hua's eyes, these dozens of years were another tribulation of tempering. During this tempering, not only was Xiao Hua racking his brains at every moment, he was also suffering a kind of painful torment at every moment. A simple cycle of karma was merely a process for Xiao Hua's clone, but the experience of a tribulation of his clone was an enormous and inconceivable experience for Xiao Hua's main body. In particular, this cycle of karma was not only for Xiao Hua's main body, but also for his phoenix body Xiao Hua, bone-tempering Xiao Hua, dragon bloodline Xiao Hua, and devil spirit Xiao Hua. These four doppelganger experiences were also added to Xiao Hua's main body. In this world, which Mahayana stage human had experienced so much tempering? Early on, in the heavenly demon's illusion, not only was Xiao Hua's physical body sucked dry, even his Tao foundation, consciousness, primordial spirit, and so on showed signs of collapse. If Xiao Hua didn't have a little obsession in his heart and wanted to hold Xue Xue's hand again, he would have already fallen in the star-moon palace formed by the heavenly demon. The first strike to kill the heavenly demon was a strike that Xiao Hua used up all his remaining essence, and it was also a strike that condensed his strength before his body collapsed. At that time, although Xiao Hua looked calm, he really didn't have the strength to strike a second time. He was in the same situation as the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon was trying its best to maintain its demonic body, trying its best to not let the newly built demonic kingdom collapse. The heavenly demon also saw Xiao Hua's collapse. The heavenly demon didn't escape because it wanted to have a final competition with Xiao Hua to see who could last until the end. Of course, Xiao Hua didn't dare to strike a second time because the backlash from the demonic saber was exactly what the heavenly demon wanted. At that time, Xiao Hua had already noticed that the heavenly demon's consciousness had begun to invade his essence. However, the heavenly demon still underestimated Xiao Hua. Its understanding of Xiao Hua was that of the Imperial Thunder Sect's Qi refinement disciple. Although the heavenly demon had overestimated Xiao Hua, it was far from enough. Not only did Xiao Hua obtain Kang Lung's inheritance, but he also obtained Du Shanjuan's Scarlet Infant technique and many other secret techniques. Moreover, Xiao Hua obtained the Dragon Clan's Heavenly Dragon Language technique and the inheritance of the 13 Soul Cultivators. Xiao Hua even had the most basic understanding of Time of the Eye in the Heavenly Prison. Xiao Hua had far exceeded the Heavenly Demon's estimation. The Heavenly Demon not only didn't notice Xiao Hua's every time the karma cycle, but it also didn't notice that Xiao Hua's of the Soul Cultivator's souls of the demonic saber's demonic qi after the of the demonic saber. That of the heavenly of the eyes of the eye of the heavenly demon's heavenly Tao. What the heavenly demon didn't expect the most was that Xiao Hua, a Daoist cultivator, was actually so unprofessional. Not only did he cultivate Confucianism, he also cultivated Buddhism, and he even cultivated the rarely seen soul cultivator. The combination of these three divine abilities perfectly trapped him in the Great Formation, leaving him no chance to escape. In the end, the heavenly demon went for wool but came home shorn, falling into Xiao Hua's trap. Based on his understanding of Xiao Hua would definitely refine him until not even dregs were left. Fortunately, he had 9 doppelgangers, and their consciousnesses had long been left outside the Devil Kingdom. The heavenly demon wasn't afraid that he would die without descendant. Xiao Hua's harvest was full, but the accumulation of 5 eons of tribulations tempering exceeded what his current cultivation could bear. At first glance, he heard the ordinary sound of bamboo leaves, which was like the sound of nature, cleansing his murderous heart. He couldn't help but be intoxicated. Just like that, he stood in the bamboo forest, quietly listening to the wind blowing, the flowers blooming, the rain falling, and the stars shining. After a long time, another bright moon hung in the sky. Xiao Hua opened his eyes, and a majestic, and austere aura was emitted from his body. Whoosh! All the bamboo within several feet of him instantly turned into powder. However, just as this aura was about to spread out, Xiao Hua frowned and immediately restrained this aura. Sighing, Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. Cultivation, our cultivation, it seems like there's no end to it. This Xiao has just gone through 10,000 years of bitter cultivation and just stepped into the Mahayana realm. Now, I have to face an even more severe test. The tempering of the illusory realm has passed, but the real tempering of the mind has just begun. This tempering, damn, it's more effective than any experience or seclusion. In the future, this Xiao probably doesn't need to travel and comprehend anymore. Just these difficulties left for this Xiao by the heavenly demon should be enough for this Xiao to set foot in the immortal world, right? Now, Xiao Hua's goal was naturally the immortal world. He couldn't imagine what kind of test the heavenly demon had left for him in the ruins in the illusory realm, and how shocking the effects of this test were. All kinds of karma could only be truly experienced by Xiao Hua in the future. At this moment, Xiao Hua looked at the empty space on his left, closed his eyes, and curled the corner of his mouth. The soul tool YA brush appeared in his hand, and as he waved it, rays of dark green light flashed, and in an instant, a large patch of green bamboo appeared out of thin air. These bamboos looked a bit illusory, as if they were suspended in the air, and they were slightly twisting. When the YA brush was put away, all of the bamboos began to stand straight and firm. Finally, Xiao Hua smiled, and green runes bloomed on the YA brush like green buds. As Xiao Hua tapped on the bamboos one by one, the bamboos miraculously came to life, and thin roots slowly pierced into the ground. The wind blew, and the bamboo leaves shattered. Another song of moonlight bamboo. Since he had thought about it, Xiao Hua had already made his decision. He put down the YA brush, and his figure landed in the bamboo pavilion. He raised his hand, and the Kunlun mirror appeared in his hand. As the light vibrated, Yu Mingshan appeared in front of Xiao Hua. At this moment, the moonlight cleansing landed on Yu Mingshan's body, and an indescribable luster was born from her body. Xiao Hua was stunned at first, but then he understood. Because of Yu Mingshan's prayer, the moon beast had left the moon god's mark on Yu Mingshan and him. It was this moon god's mark that had saved him at a critical moment. It was also because he and Yu Mingshan had used the moon god's mark that Yu Mingshan's body would be blessed by the moon god. Xiao Hua lowered his head to look at himself. He looked no different from usual. It was probably because his thoughts and prayers were not the Yu Mingshan in the moon god's mark, so he couldn't receive the so-called moon god's mark. Xiao Hua. Spiritual Master Xiao. Senior Xiao. When Yu Mingshan saw Xiao Hua, she immediately called out in concern. However, after calling him 3 times in a row, she felt that it was inappropriate. In the end, her face actually turned red. She lowered her head and asked in a voice like a fly, Are you alright? Ari. Xiao Hua sighed. He raised his eyes to look at the natural bright moon. He suddenly thought of a poem. My heart was originally towards the bright moon, but the bright moon shines on the ditch. At this moment, the bright moon was naturally Xiao Hua and not Yu Mingshan. However, the falling flower has feelings for the heartless brook. It was nothing more than this. Lady Yu. When Xiao Hua opened his mouth, Yu Mingshan's body trembled. She raised her head. Xiao Hua couldn't bear to look at her slightly biting her lips and her embarrassed and helpless expression. The soft-hearted Xiao Hua almost wanted to call her Mingshan. However, when he thought of his tolerance towards Shueishui back then, and Shueishui's sorrowful and bloody confession, and even Shueishui's tragedy, Xiao Hua hardened his heart and said, Thank you for saving this old man's life again. This old man doesn't have anything to repay you. Cultivation methods, spiritual treasures, whatever you want, this old man will definitely satisfy you. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua raised his hand and a thumb-sized pure white profound qi fell into his hand. He said again, This old man offended you that day and recklessly used your profound qi. This old man will compensate you." As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his hand again. That profound qi immediately flew out and was about to fall between Yu Mingxin's eyebrows. Wait. At this moment, Yu Mingxin's eyes became distressed. She opened her mouth and shouted, "Xiao Hua, can you wait for me to say something? Can you listen to what I'm thinking? Can you not measure everything with spiritual treasures and prime val stones?" "All right." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "If you have something to say, then say it. This old man is here to listen." Xiao Hua. Yu Mingxin bit her lips. There were tears in her eyes. "I hope you can understand my recklessness tonight. Tonight, I won't call you Senior Xiao or Spiritual Master Xiao. I'll just call you Xiao Hua." "All right." Xiao Hua's heart ached slightly. He nodded and replied, "Xiao Hua, I know that there are some things in this world that can't be explained. I only met you once and was saved by you once. Actually, even I don't dare to believe it. After I returned to the sect, I thought of you almost every moment. This feeling is something that I have never felt before. Do you know? Why did the lunar beast's imprint take effect at that time? Why did I appear in front of you from hundreds of millions of miles away? Why did I hold your hand and face a powerful opponent? The lunar beast's imprint wouldn't take effect for no reason. If you and I didn't miss each other, how could the lunar beast's imprint make me appear in front of you? If I didn't pray under the moon god that you were safe after disappearing for more than 10 years, how could I make the lunar beast's imprint take effect? Xiao Hua, don't say that you didn't think of me at that time. Don't say that what you thought of that day wasn't me." When she said the last sentence, Yu Mingxin's head almost dropped to her towering chest. However, after a short moment, she raised her head again and looked at Xiao Hua stubbornly. She didn't seem to avoid Xiao Hua's gaze and said directly, "Xiao Hua, some people don't have any feelings of longing in their hearts after seeing someone for their entire life. However, some people know that it's something that they've been chasing for their entire life after seeing someone once. I don't know how many disciples in my sect have confessed their love to me. At the same time, many young cultivators from other sects in the ruins have also begged my sect's elders, but I didn't feel anything. You and I are both Dao sect cultivators. You should be the most clear about this kind of cause and effect. You don't need me to explain it in detail, right? But..." Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, "This old man doesn't think that this kind of feeling is the so-called emotion." -13. Chapter 41-23. Unfortunately, Yu Mingxin didn't want to listen to Xiao Hua's explanation. He continued to talk to himself, "Xiao Hua, I know your cultivation base is profound. After my senior martial brother and I reported your matter, even the patriarch's eyes shined with splendor. He wanted to rope you in to become an elder of our fragrant religion. He even hinted to me that I must pass this information to you. But I don't know how to tell you. I know my cultivation is shallow and I'm only a junior in front of you. I'm not worthy of a great hero like you. But my heart is sincere and even the moon beast of the moon palace recognizes it. I just want to be by your side, even if I can only look at your back. I want to see everything about you, whether it's Ao Xiaoshu or your name that shook the cultivation world. I just want to see your figure and be proud of you. Alas, miss you." Xiao Hua sighed. He clearly remembered that Xue Xue had said the same thing in the past. He opened his mouth and said, "You don't understand. What you said, what you thought, can't be considered true love. It's just a kind of longing, a natural closeness to the strong. It's easy for anyone to have this. Maybe after a long time, you'll really understand." "You're wrong." Xiao Hua. Yu Mingxin interrupted Xiao Hua without hesitation and retorted, "You're not a woman. You don't understand a woman's heart. You also don't know how women think. We women understand much more than men when it comes to worship and love a person. Maybe I have more longing for the elders of my fragrant religion, but how can I have the same longing for them as you? You don't even know that women hate you. But where is this hatred? Where does this hatred come from? There's no such thing as love for no reason. This hatred can only come from love. A woman can't hate a man who doesn't have any love for her. Even this man doesn't exist in a woman's eyes. Maybe. Xiao Hua couldn't convince Yu Mingxin, so he could only look at the bright moon outside the bamboo pavilion and say, now that it's come to this, I think this old man should also tell you my story, my experience, and even my thoughts on that day. Women were naturally curious and Yu Mingxin was no exception. Thus, Xiao Hua briefly told the story of himself and Xue Xue. Finally, he said, I believe you understand, Miss Yu. Of course, I'm not thinking of you. What I was thinking of that day was my lover. That was for my dead lover. I used an eon's worth of accumulation, just to hold her hand. I'd rather go through an entire eon to truly fulfill my dream of seeing her. However, it wasn't her, it was you. Perhaps this is what they call a freak combination of circumstances. One calamity. Yu Mingxin was obviously a little dazed. Her face was flushed, and she was almost moaning, if someone is willing to miss me for one calamity, I don't care even if I'm smashed into pieces. How fortunate was that girl named Xue Xue? How can I have no regrets? Even in the 9 underworlds, there's an infatuated man who'd rather give up his life and use an eon's worth of longing to hold her hand. If it was me, I'd rather take his place. Even if I can't fall into the 9 underworlds, I'd be willing to fall into the bottom of the sea river. What nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Hua rebuked. Why are you acting crazy? Xiao Hua, are you worried about me? Yu Mingxin asked. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't answer. Instead, he continued, the feelings of 2 people depend on fate. Don't the people of the secular world have a saying? Fated to meet thousands of miles apart, fated to meet, fated not to meet. Actually, Miss Yu, you and I really don't have any fate. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua sighed, the people of the secular world all think like this. We Daoist cultivators easily live for hundreds of years and even thousands of years. We have even more opportunities to find our own fate. However, how can a person's fate be judged only by time? If we're not fated, even if 10,000 years, how can we meet again? Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of Fairy Hongxia from Dawn Rain Continent. However, because of some grudges, the 2 of them had been separated for tens of thousands of years. Although Xue Xue had fallen, her soul was in the yin side of space. Xiao Hua could see her from time to time. Although Fairy Hongxia was still alive, she was far from yin and yang. Xiao Hua sighed again. Perhaps, it's better to forget each other in the pugilistic world than to help each other in times of need. Yu Mingxin smiled bitterly. However, she gritted her teeth and said, Xiao Hua, I know your love for Xue Xue. I also deeply sympathize with her experience and admire her sacrifice. However, even if it's me, I can also do it. The so-called it's better to forget each other in the pugilistic world than to help each other in times of need, I really don't understand. I'd rather stay by your side and not forget each other in the pugilistic world. Miss Yu, you are still young. Perhaps in the future when you have experience, you'll understand. Xiao Hua couldn't explain his thoughts. He took out the essence and said, now, you should replenish the essence that you owe. This essence is very important to you. It's also very crucial to your Tao heart. The heavenly devil's dance overturned the mortal world. Although you weren't directly injured by the heavenly devil, when this old man borrowed your essence, perhaps the heavenly devil's dance had already taken advantage of the situation. Not only were you injured, your Tao foundation was also damaged. If you don't replenish it in time and don't repair your Tao heart in the future, you may encounter the tribulation of the mortal world. Especially when your cultivation is somewhat damaged, it's even more likely to happen. Xiao Hua. Yu Mingxin stared at Xiao Hua, as if she wanted to imprint Xiao Hua's appearance into her heart. She said word by word, take back that essence. I don't need it. Since I've already paid, I don't want to take it back. I also don't want to take back what I've paid. I'd rather you owe me. I'd rather my essence be in your body. I'd rather you owe me a lifetime. In the future, perhaps thousands of years, perhaps tens of thousands of years, Perhaps I'll turn into nothingness, perhaps I'll fall into the 9 underworlds. When you think of all of this, when you think of everything that happened today, you will think of me. You'll think of a pitiful woman who's willing to show you everything she has. If I take this so-called essence, perhaps your karma will be severed. In the future, you'll never think of the woman you met in the ruins. The woman who will think of you for who knows how many years in the future. Looking at this stubborn woman, Xiao Hua was somewhat speechless. He didn't know how to explain it to her. After all, this was the ruins, not the hidden immortal continent. In the hidden immortal continent, he provoked Fairy Jing and Xin Xin. Fairy Jing drank the forgotten love water for him, and Xin Xin was the princess of the immortal palace. He didn't know how to deal with her. How could he provoke a little woman who fell in love with him at first sight in the upper realms ruins? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua took back his essence and said seriously, "Lady Yu, this old man won't say anything unnecessary. After all, life and time are the best teachers. In the future, you'll understand what this old man said today. Moreover, in the future, you'll inevitably meet a man who's more suitable for you. You'll also inevitably have an even more unforgettable love. You'll also have a true life, a true love. Forget about me, I'm just an outsider. In the end, I'll return to my own world, and won't leave a trace, in the ruins. How can it be that easy?" Yu Mingxin's eyes flashed with determination as she replied, "Xiao Hua, love is a seed that has already been planted. How can it disappear? Perhaps it'll never sprout, so let it ferment forever. Let this love dissipate in the night sky with the moon god's favor." Saying this, Yu Mingxin took out a veil from her spatial ring and covered her head. She looked up at the round moon that was as bright as a mirror. Her gaze was so sad. "Lady Yu, why are you doing this?" Looking at Yu Mingxin's veil, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. "You have your persistence, I have my principles," Yu Mingxin indifferently replied. "Perhaps one day, when the knot in my heart is gone, I'll remove this veil. I'll face this world once again." "Ari." Xiao Hua sighed again. He knew that he had hurt a girl's heart and even changed her life. However, he knew that he had done the right thing. It was better to have a short pain than a long pain. This was a kind of rebirth pain for Yu Mingxin, but it was also a kind of relief for him. "Lady Yu, I'll send you back to the fragrance order." Xiao Hua looked at the moon that was gradually setting and asked in disappointment. "No need." Yu Mingxin slightly shook her head. "You only need to tell me where this place is, and I'll take the transmission array back to the fragrance order." "This place?" Xiao Hua stuttered. "I don't know where this is. Now that the devil race is rampant, I'll personally send you back. You've just recovered from your injuries, it's better for you to cultivate here." Yu Mingxin indifferently replied, "If I'm not wrong, this should be the Coiling Dragon Mountain of the ruins, which is the so-called Soaring Dragon Mountain range of the newly risen Fortune Gate. There's a transmission array for Soft Sound Palace nearby. I'll go back myself. Who knows how many people died in the war between Taoists and devils? I'm just an ordinary female cultivator. The devil race might not put me in their eyes." "Fine." Xiao Hua was speechless, then said, "Do as you wish. Do you hate me that much?" Yu Mingxin asked again, "You can't tolerate me staying here for a few more hours?" No. Xiao Hua hurriedly denied, "Even if Lady Yu doesn't leave, this old man won't say anything." Yu Mingxin looked at Xiao Hua and sighed. "Xiao Hua, you're obviously so approachable. Why are you so heartless towards me?" Xiao Hua was speechless. Yu Mingxin didn't seem to ask for an answer. She walked to the side of the bamboo pavilion and looked up at the moon. Her gaze followed the moon as it gradually set. When the first rays of dawn rose, the east was about to break, and the 3 suns jumped out of the horizon. Yu Mingxin turned her head and said, "Daoist Xiao, this junior will take her leave." -13. Chapter 41-24. The words Daoist Xiao seemed to sever all ties. Xiao Hua's heart ached as he raised his hand. "I'll send you off. No need. I have my own legs." Yu Mingxin was still stubborn. As she spoke, she flew into the air. "Green-robed Daoist." Xiao Hua called out softly. "Help me send Lady Yu back to the incense cult." "Sigh, what a good girl." Green-robed Xiao Hua flew out and shook his head. Why don't you cherish her? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes. I do want to cherish her, but do you think I can take her away? What can I use to cherish her? You're quite considerate, why don't you share some with her? It's your decision whether to take her away or not. If you feel that Hidden Immortal Continent and Dawn Rain Continent aren't suitable, you can bring her to Shenhua Continent. Shenhua Continent is full of vitality now, it's more interesting than the ruins. Green-robed Daoist. Xiao Hua said helplessly. Emotions are emotions, they have nothing to do with one's heart. I've only seen Lady Yu a few times, how could I fall in love with her? Daoist, you still don't understand such emotional matters. When you have enough essence, perhaps you'll understand. Hey! Green-robed Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. Daoist, you mean we've profited from a disaster? Yes, of course. Xiao Hua nodded. Being banished to Black Ruins Mountain was a disaster. Drifting in the heavenly prison for tens of thousands of years was also a disaster. Even being plotted against by the heavenly demon was a great disaster. However, now we're in a better place. Accidentally entering the ruins is an opportunity, and refining the heavenly demon is another. It's impossible to encounter such an opportunity in the 3 continents, or even Dawn Rain Continent. Daoist, please send Lady Yu off first. When you return, we'll discuss it carefully. All right. Green-robed Xiao Hua clapped his hands and disappeared in the air. Xiao Hua looked at the place where Yu Mingxin had disappeared and sighed. He then released his divine sense. After looking for a moment, his figure flickered and a faint thread of fire flashed in the air. He used the fire escape technique to fly tens of thousands of miles away. When Xiao Hua reappeared, he stood in the air and looked around with satisfaction. This was a wasteland, and there were no signs of human habitation, cultivators, or devils within 1,000 miles. There were only withered yellow mugwort scattered all over the boundless mountains. Occasionally, there were some undulating hills, on which stood some unknown plants with thumb-sized berries hanging from the sharp branches. There weren't many rivers in the wilderness. In some places, there were deep ravines carved into the ground. In the middle of the ravines, there were brown mountain rocks. Xiao Hua looked at it for a moment, then made a hand seal. A yellow light flashed around his body, and his whole body fell to the ground. Let's do it here. Xiao Hua's figure moved under the ground for a moment. After observing for a while, he stopped about 100 feet away from the ground and said to himself, the heaven-earth essence qi in this area is extremely rich. There are no sects nearby, and the devils won't notice this place. Although there is a teleportation array not far away, few people use it. Ordinary cultivators can also come here. If I build a teleportation array here, it shouldn't attract anyone's attention. After saying that, Xiao Hua waved his hands and shot out 365 jade talismans. It took him half an hour to set up the Capital Heaven Star Array in an area of more than 10 mu. When the Capital Heaven Star Array was set up, Xiao Hua released some puppets and let them clean up the soil and stones in the Capital Heaven Star Array to make room for the teleportation array. At this time, green-robed Xiao Hua had returned. How come you're so fast? Xiao Hua frowned as he looked at green-robed Xiao Hua's figure gradually appearing. Green-robed Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, What? Daoist, I still want to send her back to the 7 Ridge Mountains? Yes, that's what I meant. Xiao Hua didn't hide it. At this time, the devils are rampant. There's still a long way to go from the southwest border to the 7 Ridge Mountains. Green-robed Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said, Didn't you not want her? Why are you so concerned? These are clearly 2 different things. Xiao Hua was helpless. Yu Mingxin saved our lives. Sending her back to her sect safely isn't a big deal, right? Green-robed Xiao Hua looked at the puppets that were busy and said with a smile, Don't worry. Although I didn't send her back to the 7 Ridge Mountains, when I followed Miss Yu to the teleportation array, we met the disciples of Fragrance Cult and Shendao sect. Among them was WN Wuxin, whom you saw earlier. There were dozens of them and they said that they were going to Qing her under the orders of their sects. After Miss Yu heard this, she didn't return to the 7 Ridge Mountains for the time being and went with them to Qing her. I saw them enter the teleportation array before returning. Qing her. Xiao Hua slightly nodded. According to the battle report from the discussion hall, there aren't any devils in Qinghe. They probably have other missions, right? Yes, I also thought so I returned without worry. Green-robed Xiao Hua blindly moved. Moreover, even if I send Miss Yu back to the Seven Ridge Mountains, as long as the devils in the ruins aren't eliminated, she'll be in danger at all times. You probably can't do anything about it, right? Sigh, that's true. Xiao Hua could only nod. If Miss Yu's personality isn't so stubborn, I can help her raise her strength. That would be the best. Hehe, if that's the case, she won't be called Yu Mingxian. Green-robed Xiao Hua chuckled and changed the topic. Oh right, what did you say our opportunity in the ruins was? Take a look at this. As he spoke, Xiao Hua took out the orthodoxies of the 8 sects in the southwest that Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua gave him and handed them over to green-robed Xiao Hua. Green-robed Xiao Hua took it and opened his mouth to swallow it. However, after a moment of hesitation, he placed the jade slip on his forehead. In just a short moment, shock appeared on his face. Then, he carefully read through all 8 jade slips before closing his eyes and pondering. After an entire hour, he finally looked up at Xiao Hua and enunciated each word clearly. Fellow Daoist, the cultivators of the ruins. Do they cultivate the nascent divinity arts? Is it the Dao sect's primordial spirit technique? That's right. Xiao Hua also nodded solemnly. The Confucian cultivators of the 3 continents cultivate the primordial spirit, so there are realms of refining essence into qi, refining qi into spirit, refining spirit into void, and refining void into heaven. In the ruins, the Dao sect's cultivation system is different from the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent. They also cultivate the primordial spirit, and the realms are refining essence, transforming qi, returning spirit, returning void, refining void, and transforming Dao. Apart from the last transforming Dao, the first 8 realms are almost exactly the same as the Confucian cultivators. However, the Confucian cultivators cultivate the qi of righteousness, while the ruins cultivators cultivate the qi of heaven and earth. That's strange. Green-robed Xiao Hua comprehended a lot of cultivation methods, and his understanding of cultivation methods and secret arts was also extremely deep, but he was also somewhat confused when faced with such a different cultivation system. The Dao sect cultivators of the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent cultivate the nascent soul, but the Dao sect cultivators of the ruins cultivate the primordial spirit, so why do they all use the qi of heaven and earth? And many of the arts are the same as well. There are 2 possibilities. Xiao Hua said indifferently. First, the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent are lower realms. Not only is the qi of heaven and earth there not abundant, but it's also different from the ruins' qi of heaven and earth. It can't allow Dao sect cultivators to cultivate the primordial spirit. But the ruins is a higher realm, so the qi of heaven and earth here can allow Dao sect cultivators to cultivate the primordial spirit. That makes sense. Green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. Other clones might not be able to detect it, but I can clearly sense the faint fluctuations within the qi of heaven and earth with the help of the formless nascent soul. This is something that the 3 continents don't have. Then what's the second? The second is the essence energy. Xiao Hua answered, if it wasn't for the heavenly devil, I still wouldn't know that we human cultivators still have essence energy in our bodies. Even more so, I don't know the importance of this essence energy and how to use it. Fellow Daoist must also know about the rejuvenation pill that we refined previously, right? I'm afraid that there's a small amount of essence energy mixed in it, that's why it has such a miraculous effect. Fellow Daoist means that the essence energy in the bodies of the ruins cultivators is different from the essence energy in the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent's human cultivators? It's not different, the essence energy is presumably the same, but the amount of essence energy contained in each human cultivator's body is different. Xiao Hua said with a smile, you can see the difference from the orthodoxies of the 8 great sects. The first stage of Dao sect cultivators is to refine essence. Only those who can control the essence energy in their bodies and refine it for their own use can be called Dao sect cultivators. The essence mentioned by Confucian cultivators seems to be the essence of essence, energy, and spirit, right? Green-robed Xiao Hua probed. It should also be the essence of essence energy. Xiao Hua explained, however, the essence energy in the bodies of the humans of the 3 continents is really too little, so they have to borrow the human qi in the noble qi to refine it into qi. In that case, it should be a great opportunity for fellow Daoist Confucian cultivator. What does it have to do with us? Green-robed Xiao Hua was completely stupefied. Fellow Daoist, Confucian cultivators often hear people talk about essence, energy, and spirit. Only with these 3 things can there be a living person. This essence is the most basic foundation of a person. Xiao Hua said with a smile, and for fellow Daoist and your clones, although you've used the external incarnation technique to separate yourself, you can't be considered as living people. Who says we can't? Green-robed Xiao Hua almost stomped his feet. Isn't the person standing in front of you a handsome man? But, fellow Daoist, do you think you'll love Yu Mingxin? Xiao Hua's eyes turned as he said with a smile. Love? What's love? Green-robed Xiao Hua was a bit bewildered. Could it be that fellow Daoist feels sorry for Yu Mingxin and wants I to replace you? People often talk about the 7 emotions and 6 desires. The 7 emotions are happiness, anger, grief, fear, love, disgust, and lust. The 6 desires are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the 6 desires. As for human nature, it's even more impossible to use words to express it. Xiao Hua said again, fellow Daoist and the others are currently only clones of I. They still don't have the 7 emotions and 6 desires, so they can't be considered as separate people. And this essence energy is the most basic foundation for fellow Taoists to become human. -13. Chapter 41-25. Xiao Hua looked at the green-robed Xiao Hua and said faintly, I didn't understand before. However, ever since I experienced the illusory array of the heavenly demon and witnessed the emotions of the bone-tempering Xiao Hua, the phoenix body Xiao Hua, the dragon bloodline Xiao Hua, and the devil spirit Xiao Hua in the illusory array, I realized that those clones were the real clone. Moreover, when I took back my own profound qi from the heavenly demon, I understood that the prerequisite for practicing the external avatar technique is to have enough profound qi. Only with enough profound qi can one create a real doppelganger. I may have enough profound qi, but when I split my doppelganger, I didn't know how to split my profound qi. Moreover, your doppelgangers were split by I a long time ago. This is an early congenital deficiency, which gave the heavenly demon the opportunity to have a primordial spirit battle. The green-robed Xiao Hua was shocked and shouted, so, there are a lot of cultivators in the Xiaoyu continent and even the hidden immortal continent who know about the primordial spirit-splitting technique, but there may not be many who successfully practice it. It's all because the human race in the lower realm doesn't have enough profound qi? Yes, it should be like this. Xiao Hua nodded. Even now, looking back, the primordial spirit-splitting technique that I got before seems to be very perfect, but in fact, it's just a small trick to treat the symptoms but not the root cause. It's all a shortcut. In the end, because of insufficient profound qi, one will go astray and destroy the body. No wonder the external avatar technique was called the supreme secret technique of the demon realm by the so-called empress. Only the strong of a realm can practice it. So this is the reason. The green-robed Xiao Hua somewhat understood, so, although the strength of the cultivators in the ruins is not high, they are in the upper realm, so they are born with sufficient profound qi, which is 100 times stronger than the human race in the 3 continents. These are just I's guesses. Xiao Hua smiled. It's impossible to record this in the orthodoxy of the 8 major sect. Who cares if their profound qi is 100 times stronger than the human race in the hidden immortal continent? As long as we can use the ruins technique to make up for the deficiency of our primordial spirit that day, cultivate our primordial spirit to perfection, and then use the profound qi in the heavenly demon's body to supplement the profound qi of the doppelgangers, and mold you into real cultivators with 7 emotions and 6 desires. Alas! When green-robed Xiao Hua heard this, he hesitated for a moment before bowing and saying, on behalf of the other fellow Taoists, I thank fellow Daoist for his great kindness. Although I didn't participate in the battle of the primordial spirits, I also heard something strange from the words of Mo Ling. I also felt the crisis and was afraid that fellow Daoist would have other thoughts. Now that we've heard it, we're truly at ease. Fellow Daoist, your heart is as pure as the heavens, and your sincerity is greater than the sun and moon. Hehe, I also had evil thoughts. Xiaohua said with a smile. However, in the end, I still feel that since I was able to bring all of you fellow Taoists into this world, I should be responsible to the end and do as much as I can. When he spoke up to hear, Xiaohua continued proudly. Moreover, I believe that with my character, all of you were separated from my soul core, so I presume your characters aren't much different, right? Even the little Moling was so obedient in the illusion and didn't dare to resist in front of this Xiao. This was what he truly thought in his heart. Therefore, I am extremely relieved to let all of you out. Hehe, that's. A smile appeared on green-robed Xiaohua's face. Apart from being sentimental and being greedy, fellow Daoist doesn't have any special shortcomings. Sweat. Xiaohua's face turned green as he said somewhat awkwardly, green-robed fellow Daoist, can you not speak so bluntly? These can't be considered as shortcomings, right? Besides, does fellow Daoist know what sentimental and being greedy are? Ayo. When he spoke up to hear, Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, right, I have to warn you. Before your profound chi is replenished, don't do sentimental things. Otherwise, you will know what it means to be sentimental since ancient times. TSK. Green-robed Xiaohua said disdainfully, I still don't know what it means to be a good match between a man and a woman, although the so-called old man pushing the cart, shut up. Xiaohua was anxious. Although no one was listening, his face was still red. He didn't think that some details that he didn't pay attention to would now become his weakness. All right. Green-robed Xiaohua saw that Xiaohua was really anxious and hurriedly changed the topic. I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist in these aspects. If you need I and others in other aspects, fellow Daoist can just let me know. Xiaohua pointed at the busy puppet and said unhappily, do you still need to say it? Could it be that this transmission array needs I to personally arrange it? If fellow Daoist personally arranges it, it's naturally foolproof. Green-robed Xiaohua said with a smile, however, for such a small matter, there's no need for fellow Daoist to have such a profound cultivation. I will help you deal with it. Seeing that green-robed Xiaohua had already started to flatter him, Xiaohua smiled. The heavenly devil's profound chi was really boundless. He had only just refined it and it made green-robed Xiaohua have such rare emotions. He was really looking forward to it. He wanted to know what would happen to him and his clone after refining the heavenly devil's profound chi. It's just that. Without waiting for Xiaohua to be gratified, green-robed Xiaohua suddenly brought him back to reality. I feel that this place isn't suitable for setting up a transmission array. Oh, why? Xiaohua was slightly stunned and asked. Green-robed Xiaohua looked around and said, this place is relatively close to the ground. It's easy to be discovered by the devil race. Moreover, now that the ruins is besieged by the devil race, even if we set up a transmission array, we may not be able to find the location marked by fellow Daoist's divine sense. Why don't fellow Daoist take advantage of the war between the devil race and the cultivators of the ruins to sneak out of the ruins? Wouldn't it be more appropriate for us to set up a transmission array in other places similar to the ruins? Xiaohua could only smile bitterly in his heart at the thought of green-robed Xiaohua who didn't care about the cultivators of the ruins. He understood that green-robed Xiaohua still couldn't really understand the meaning of life at this time, so he explained, this transmission array only needs to be connected to the divine sense mark in the Elysium world. That divine sense is very weak. If the transmission array goes too deep underground, I am afraid that there will be a problem when the transmission array is activated. As for setting up a transmission array in other places, I have also thought about it. However, since we were interrupted here during the transmission process previously, it is more likely that the ruins can sense that divine sense. If we put it in other places, perhaps without the interference of the devil race, we may not be able to sense that divine sense. As for the devil race, without us in the ruins, there may be no hope of defeating them, but with us and the fortune gate, there is always hope of defeating the devil race. Good. Green-robed Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, I know, fellow Daoist can go do other things. Leave the transmission array to I. En, my fortune gate lost tens of thousands of disciples in the ruins, and their souls are still floating in the sky above the ruins. The devil race surrounded the ruins with the purpose of collecting wandering souls. I can't let the devil race take away the wandering souls of my fortune gate disciples. Xiao Hua raised his eyes to look at the ground and said indifferently. Green-robed Xiao Hua hurriedly urged, fellow Daoist is right, this matter should be done sooner rather than later, fellow Daoist should go quickly. Subsequently, Xiao Hua cupped his fists at green-robed Xiao Hua, and flew out from the capital star formation in a flicker. His consciousness wrapped around the netherworld origin force, and while flying, he collected the wandering souls into the yin side of the space. The 10 years that Xiao Hua was trapped in the netherworld blood sea was also the most crucial period of the war in the southwest. The Fortune Gate had lost 40,000 disciples, and the 8 sects in the southwest had lost even more disciples. On top of that, the Devil Clansmen had also been killed. Inside Xiao Hua's space, the underworld fruit tree had begun to expand rapidly. A continent similar to Shenhua continent had also emerged from the netherworld blood sea. On top of that, strange underworld beasts had also appeared on this continent. These underworld beasts looked like insects, but also like ants. There were many kinds of them, and they could be found all over the continent. Xiao Hua collected the wandering souls near the soaring Dragon Mountain range, and just as he was about to go to other places to take a look, Sun Jian sent him a message. Xiao Hua received the message, and after reading it carefully, he couldn't help but frown. The message clearly stated that among the 10 great sects of the southwest border, only the Snow Chopping School and the Eternal Peace Mountain had not been rescued by the Fortune Gate from the Devil Race's encirclement. This was not because the Fortune Gate did not want to rescue them, but because the location of these 2 sects was too dangerous. This danger was nothing to the Devil Race, who had the ability to control space, but it was troublesome for the other human cultivators. This danger was originally a barrier for the 2 sects to resist the foreign enemies, but now it had become an obstacle for the Fortune Gate to rescue them. Now that Sun Jian had received Xiao Hua's reinforcements of 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples, he began to train the new disciples while contacting the Snow Chopping Gate and Mount Yong'an to send disciples to investigate the Devil Race's situation. However, the situation was beyond Sun Jian's expectations. Not only did the 2 sects not respond, but none of the disciples sent out to investigate had returned. Sun Jian felt that this matter was strange, and contacted the ruins assembly hall. In the end, the assembly hall's message was the same as Sun Jian's. The assembly hall had also lost contact with the 2 sects half a year ago, and the disciples sent out by the assembly hall also did not return. In other words, at this time, no one had any news about the Snow Chopping School and the Eternal Peace Mountain. If Sun Jian wanted to send the Fortune Gate's army to these 2 sects, he must obtain news from them. Therefore, after thinking for a long time, Sun Jian sent a message to Xiao Hua, hoping that Xiao Hua could send his friends to the Snow Chopping School and the Eternal Peace Mountain to inquire about the Devil Race's movements. When Xiao Hua saw this message, he was displeased at first. After all, whether it was Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua's 3 doppelgangers, or himself, they were all 9th grade Essence Force cultivators. If they wanted to kill the Devil Race's Devil Monarch and Devil Emperor, naturally they would have to go. This kind of small matter of inquiring about information, how could it be worth it for him to take action? However, after thinking about it for a while, Xiao Hua also understood Sun Jian's difficulties. The cultivation of the disciples sent by Sun Jian to the 2 sects might not be too bad, and they would certainly be good at escape techniques. The assembly hall wanted to control the situation in the ruins, and the disciples sent out were familiar with the situation of the Snow Chopping School and the Eternal Peace Mountain. Even they had fallen there, how could Sun Jian send more disciples? Perhaps only Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua and other experts who were not afraid of the Devil Race were suitable, right? -13. Chapter 41-26. The teleportation formation was built by fellow Daoist Greenrobe. This Xiao can be considered to have nothing to do now. Since that's the case, This Xiao might as well make a trip. Either way, I can also snatch some souls from the devil's mouth. It can be considered as killing two birds with one stone. Xiao Hua made up his mind and sent back the transmission talisman. After identifying the direction slightly, he released the netherworld origin power and flew towards the direction indicated by the transmission talisman. After flying for more than 10 days, he saw that the originally undulating mountain range had gradually turned into sheer cliffs and precipitous cliffs. Huge cracks were deeply carved on the ground. The cracks here were radial, as if a large hand was pulling the ground apart. There was not a single plant on the cliffs in those cracks, not even the commonly seen green moss could be seen. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over and only saw a kind of huge green rock. This huge rock was exposed in the air. There were strange scratches on it, like a folded sticky cake. Xiao Hua's figure stopped on top of a cliff and released the netherworld origin power again. Woo! A strange whirlwind was born from Xiao Hua's body and spun towards the distance. Following this whirlwind, wandering souls flocked into the dark side of Xiao Hua's space like a swarm of bees. In just half the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, he had collected no less than several tens of thousands of wandering souls. It's a bit troublesome. Xiao Hua stopped. At the same time he identified the direction, he thought to himself, along the way, the number of wandering souls of the human race has increased, and the number of souls of the devil race has also decreased. Now that I'm close to the two sects, I can't even see the souls of the devil race. In other words, these two sects might have already been annihilated by the devil race. However, if these two sects were annihilated by the devil race should have retreated long ago. It's impossible for those disciples who came to scout not to return. Furthermore, since the devil race's devil emperor wants to collect the souls of the human race in the ruins, why didn't they make a move on the hundreds of thousands of souls in the southwest border? Why did they have to wait until the last moment to collect them all together? Could it be that they want to use so many souls to refine the devil artifact at the same time? Just as he was thinking, woo! A gust of wind whistled from afar, blowing on the rock under Xiao Hua's feet and releasing an even more horrifying sound. Furthermore, as the wind blew past, the rocks within 1,000 li to the left of Xiao Hua also released this kind of sound. These sounds gathered together, formed a chaotic fluctuation. These fluctuations not only attacked Xiao Hua's Niwen Palace, they also directly shook Xiao Hua's mysterious dark cloud. A green light flickered between Xiao Hua's eyebrows as he urged his soul cultivation technique to block these fluctuations. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel aghast in his heart. Granny, Sun Jian's messaging talisman did mention the dangers of the southwest border, but this Xiao still underestimated this danger. No wonder Sun Jian didn't dare to send any more disciples here. This natural attack is comparable to a soul cultivation secret technique. How could an ordinary cultivator withstand it? Woo! Another gust of wind that was twice as loud as the previous one came out. Xiao Hua hastily raised his head, only to see that in front of him, there was a gloomy coldness that pressed down on the sky for thousands of li. That gloomy coldness was full of killing intent. The chaotic fluctuations were even more like 10,000 waves crashing over. Although Xiao Hua's head was flashing with a green light, outside his mysterious dark cloud, there was still a violent impact that was like thunder. That's not right. Although Snow Chop School and Yong'an Mountain are in dangerous terrain, if they were attacked by this kind of impact, how could their disciples still survive? Xiao Hua was somewhat bewildered, but after a moment, he woke up. Oh no, there's no need to say any more. This Xiao is lost again. Seeing that the indescribably terrifying storm was about to hit, Xiao Hua knew that this heavenly might was absolutely not something that could be resisted by human strength. He hastily urged the wind escape technique to flee into the distance. After fleeing for a few more days, the storm finally lessened, and sunlight began to appear in the cold sky. Looking at the 3 weak orange-like suns gradually setting in the sky, and then looking at the mountain peaks below him that were getting fewer and fewer, and the ravines that were getting deeper and deeper, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, "It seems that this Xiao accidentally found the right direction." After saying that, Xiao Hua rested for a moment, released his divine sense, and urged the lightning escape technique to rush towards the place where the suns were setting. In just half an hour, seeing that the 3 suns were about to set, Xiao Hua arrived at a very wonderful place. The earth seemed to have come to an end here. Broken cliffs appeared below Xiao Hua. In front of the cliffs, there was an empty space. Vaguely, hundreds of miles away, there were huge rocks floating in the air. Above the earth, a huge cliff that looked like a rainbow bridge protruded from a broken cliff, and it was dozens of li long. The three suns were setting in the distance of the cliff, and they looked like three red balls rolling on a bridge. Below the bridge, there was a green void, and in that void, the outline of a group of stars was faintly visible. Xiao Hua understood that as long as the three red suns set, a bright starry sky would be born under this cliff, and it would be born under his feet. This is Yong'an Mountain. Xiao Hua looked at this beautiful scenery in a daze, and whispered, if it was Snow/Gate, it wouldn't be a rainbow bridge protruding out of the earth, but a cliff that seems to have been cut off by a knife. Snow/Gate and Yong'an Mountain built their sects in such a dangerous place, so it is naturally easy to defend and difficult to attack. However, this cliff is so strange, even this Xiao's divine sense is disturbed by the fluctuations outside the cliff, and I can't see the situation inside the cliff. Looking at the unusually quiet Yong'an Mountain, he felt a little strange. Why don't I see the demon clan's demon array? Not to mention the demon clan's siege? It seems that I can only fly over and take a look. Finished thinking, Xiao Hua's figure fell towards the cliff, but after falling for more than 100 zhong, a very strange whirlpool suddenly appeared under Xiao Hua's feet, as if it wanted to drag him into the void. Xiao Hua was shocked, and lightning surged around his body, and his figure rapidly rose. And as Xiao Hua's figure rose, that whirlpool disappeared again. Xiao Hua helplessly flew towards the distance for a moment, and then landed again. As he expected, when his figure fell to a certain height, that whirlpool appeared again. Alas, I'm afraid this is the natural barrier of Yong'an Mountain. Xiao Hua sighed, looked at the left, and thought to himself, only by walking out of the cliff will it be safe. No wonder the discussion hall and Sun Jian didn't dare to come to rescue me. Thinking, Xiao Hua flew towards the large area, and prepared to walk over from the cliff. However, right before he flew to the cliff, the three red suns behind him completely sunk into the ground. However, in the extreme distance to Xiao Hua's right, there was still a ray of sunlight that stubbornly shone on the cliff. That bright red color seemed to be quite pleasing. Hey! Xiao Hua's figure stopped in midair, slightly stunned, and turned his head to look at the location of the setting sun in puzzlement. That place was already dark, and the three suns had already disappeared. What's going on? Suddenly, Xiao Hua thought of something, and his figure rapidly rose. Sure enough, as Xiao Hua rushed to the sky, the setting sun appeared again in the distance among the shattered rocks. Damn it, this Xiao understands now. Only when a strong wind appeared above Xiao Hua's head, blowing Xiao Hua's body to the point of pain, did Xiao Hua stop. His eyes flashed with extraordinary splendor, and he secretly shouted, "This place is where this Xiao saw the torn gap in the ruins when the transportation formation collapsed. No wonder there are strong winds and strange fluctuations here. These should exist in the starry sky. Moreover, the ruins is a planet in the upper realm, and it is originally circular. These three suns rise in the east and set in the west, and they won't fall below the ground. As long as you fly towards the location where the suns fall, you will always be able to see the suns. If you fly one round around this planet, you should be able to see the sunrise of the second day. The hidden immortal continent and the dawn rain continent are a piece of land, and the suns rise in the east and set in the west must have fallen below the ground." No. The hidden immortal continent and the dawn rain continent might not be a piece of land, and they might also be huge planet. It's just that they are too huge, and even tribulation transcendence cultivators can't fly faster than the speed at which the suns set. Otherwise, how could Confucian cultivators have the legend of Kwa Fu chasing the sun? After comprehending this point, Xiao Hua seemed to have been enlightened. Previously, Heavenly Dao Xiao Hua had imparted to him a lot of comprehensions, and the areas that he couldn't understand before were now easily comprehended. Even the starry sky within the space was rumbling, and not only was the starlight shining brightly, but the Shenhua continent was violently expanding once again, of course. Xiao Hua's figure flashed 9 times in midair, and then stopped. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and smiled. This Xiao's Shenhua continent and the continent on the yin side of the space are also continents. The hidden immortal continent and the three continents might also be continents. But the fact that the ruins are planets is real, and there are also many planets in the upper realms cultivation world, and this is also real. This world may be continents or planets, and there might be other forms. Isn't the wonder of heaven and earth here? If this Xiao didn't accidentally fall into the ruins, how could I comprehend the profound meaning of the space law so easily? How could I comprehend the minute details of the time law? Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed loudly, and his figure rapidly descended. When his feet touched the ground, he looked at the Yong'an mountain in the distance, which was already shrouded by the curtain of night. He put his hands behind his back and slowly walked over. However, just as he walked out of the cliff, a faint brilliance emerged from the mountain rocks, and then an obscure fluctuation rushed to the other side of the cliff like lightning. Xiao Hua only raised his eyelids slightly to take a look, but he didn't stop walking. He knew that this was the restriction of the Yong'an mountain, and if someone broke in, it would definitely send a warning to the sect. Sure enough, after walking for another 100 feet, a voice came from the front. Which fellow Daoist has come to my Yong'an mountain? Please report your name. Xiao Hua smiled and stopped, and calmly said, I, Xiao Hua of the Fortune Gate, am here to pay my respects to the Yong'an mountain sect master. Oh, so it's Senior Xiao. Please wait a moment, this junior will release the restriction and invite Senior in. That voice didn't sound particularly respectful. -13. Chapter 41-27. After the disciple finished speaking, he saw 100 or so feet in front of Xiao Hua. Shua. Like a flash of water, hundreds of light blue sparks appeared out of thin air and then exploded at the same time. After a series of crackling sounds, hundreds of beehive-like flying boats appeared in the air. On each flying boat stood 2 human cultivators wearing black armor and holding magic treasures. The black armor didn't have any brilliance and looked like it was refined from wood vines. The armor covered the cultivators' heads and faces, making it impossible to see their appearance. The first flying boat landed in front of Xiao Hua, and a tall cultivator flew down from it. He bowed and said, Junior Ding Hong, the guard of Yong'an Mountain, greets Senior Xiao. Xiao Hua waved his hand and helped Ding Hong up. He asked, this Xiao heard that the devil race besieged the Yong'an Mountain. Why is there no trace of the devil race here? Senior, please no. Ding Hong respectfully replied, several years ago, the devil race besieged the Yong'an Mountain. However, under the tenacious resistance of the disciples, the devil race didn't succeed. Later on, a large-scale star tide occurred near the Yong'an Mountain. The disciples of the Yong'an Mountain were lucky enough to escape by hiding in the mountain protecting formation. However, the devil race was killed by the star tide. After the star tide passed, the devil race retreated. That's strange. Xiao Hua curiously asked, since the Yong'an Mountain has been rescued, why didn't they send the news to the conference hall? Under the star tide, the Yong'an Mountain's sect protecting formation was smashed into pieces. The other restrictions, including the transmission array, were completely destroyed. The news of the Yong'an Mountain couldn't be sent out. Ding Hong replied neither arrogantly nor humbly. Moreover, the Yong'an Mountain can't enter the conference hall. Why would the conference hall care about the safety of the Yong'an Mountain? Thinking about the conference hall's attitude towards the 10 sects in the southwest, Xiao Hua knew that Ding Hong was right. However, he still asked, but recently, not only the conference hall, even my Fortune Gate has sent some disciples to investigate. Why didn't I receive any news from the Yong'an Mountain? Oh, there's such a thing. Ding Hong was obviously surprised to hear this for the first time. He replied, this junior has only been on guard duty for a few months. There are also shifts during this period. This junior doesn't know what senior is talking about. Forgive junior for not being able to answer. Where's your sect master? Xiao Hua asked as he looked at the dense palaces on the cliff that looked like a rainbow bridge after the restriction was removed in the distance. Ding Hong looked at Xiao Hua and smiled apologetically. To be honest, Junior has never heard of the Fortune Gate, but since Senior is concerned about my Eternal Peace Mountain and is a human cultivator, Junior removed the restriction. However, if Senior wishes to meet with my sect master, I would like to ask Senior to take out your nameplate, or a token from the conference hall. Xiao Hua nodded, took out a jade slip, wrote something on it, and handed it to Ding Hong with a smile. I came here in a hurry, so I didn't get the assembly hall's token. Moreover, I'm not a cultivator of the ruins, so I don't have any nameplate. This is the message this old man left for your sect master. Take it to your sect master. I'm sure he'll meet this old man after reading it. Yes, I understand. Ding Hong took the jade slip, but didn't look at it. He waved his hand and took out a wooden object that looked like a flying sword. He placed the jade slip inside and turned to a disciple behind him, instructing, "Take this to 7th Martial Uncle." Yes. That disciple took it and drove the flying boat away. After half a cup of tea's time, that disciple drove the flying boat back and respectfully saluted Xiao Hua. "Senior Xiao, my sect master has a favor to meet you." "Oh." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Your sect master is quite arrogant. I wouldn't dare." Ding Hong hurriedly explained, "My sect master was seriously injured in the battle with the devil race. He can't walk, so he can't welcome you from afar, so I hope Senior Xiao can understand." "What injury? He hasn't recovered after so long?" Xiao Hua asked curiously. "This." Ding Hong hesitated and smiled apologetically. "Forgive Junior for not being able to disclose. Senior should ask my sect master face to face." Lead the way." Xiao Hua nodded. "Perhaps this old man can take a look at your sect master's injury." "Very good, Senior, please." Ding Hong slightly leaned to the side and motioned Xiao Hua to get on the flying boat, explaining, "The restrictions of my Yong'an Mountain are quite powerful. If you don't take the flying boat, it will be a bit troublesome. Of course, with Senior's cultivation, you may not care about this, but in order to not destroy the restrictions, I ask Senior to take the flying boat." "Okay." Xiao Hua didn't make things difficult for Ding Hong and agreed, his figure floating on the flying boat. When Xiao Hua landed on the flying boat actually sank slightly, as if Xiao Hua's figure was extremely heavy. Ding Hong was stunned for a moment, then respectfully said, "Senior, please sit, Junior will send Senior in." Along the way, there are many restrictions in my Yong'an Mountain. Although many of them are being repaired, their power is not small. Haha, let's go. Xiao Hua laughed. If this old man can't even deal with this, how could this old man dare to come to Yong'an Mountain? Ding Hong somewhat awkwardly replied, "Senior must be joking. My Yong'an Mountain may be a dragon's pool and a tiger's den for the demon race, but how could it be possible for the cultivators of the human race?" While speaking, Ding Hong activated the flying boat. The flying boats of the other disciples were hidden in the air, but a faint aurora-like dazzling light was emitted from the flying boat. Wherever the flying boat passed, strange fluctuations would appear one after another. There were even a few times when an extremely powerful magnetic force rushed out from the cliff. The magnetic force was like a big colorful tiger, roaring and pouncing towards Xiao Hua. However, before Xiao Hua's face could change, a green cloud immediately appeared above the flying boat. When the magnetic force fell on the cloud, it slowly turned into nothingness. Of course, these clouds couldn't completely eliminate the sharp magnetic force. Some of the magnetic force still broke through the flying boat's defense and fell on Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua's whole body flashed with brilliance, and the magnetic force actually pierced through the brilliance. "Senior." After doing this several times, Ding Hong's face couldn't help but smile apologetically. These defenses were originally controllable, but because of the siege of the demon race and the destruction of the star tide, some of the defensive arrays have already lost their effectiveness. "Please forgive me, Senior. It's okay." Xiao Hua waved his hand as if he was swatting a fly, flashing brilliance, brushing away the magnetic force. He smiled. No wonder fellow Taoists said that although Yong'an Mountain was besieged by the demon race, it would definitely be fine. With this magnetic force, even the demon race would be defeated. Haha, in this aspect, my Yong'an Mountain has some unique conditions. Ding Hong saw that Xiao Hua didn't blame him, so he also smiled and replied. Xiao Hua looked at his feet and asked curiously, "Your flying boat of Yong'an Mountain is strange. What material is it made of? It's actually not afraid of the magnetic force. Senior, please no. Ding Hong didn't hide it and explained, this flying boat is made of Yong and Mountain's specialty, the nightbreaker wood. This nightbreaker wood grows day and night in the polar magnetic field, and the wood grain has developed natural runes. These runes have the effect of using and avoiding the polar magnetic field. And my Yong and Mountain has also inherited the use of the polar magnetic field secret technique, so we also set up a secret array inside the flying boat, so this flying boat can pass through the polar magnetic field without attracting the polar magnetic field. If Senior were to fly outside the flying boat at this time, the natural polar magnetic field would have already attacked Senior. So, Xiao Hua looked at the beehive-like flying boat and said with a smile, the strange appearance of this flying boat is also to avoid the polar magnetic field, right? Senior's eyes are really sharp. Ding Hong gave a thumbs up and said, this beehive naturally has 6 edges, which coincides with the array of my Yong and Mountain. So, at this point, Ding Hong realized that he had misspoken, so he hurriedly stopped and said with a smile, this matter involves the secrets of the sect, so it's inconvenient for Junior to say more. Senior, please ask the sect master. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded, then looked to the left and asked, this magnetic force is very powerful, this old man's divine sense can't be released too far. Could it be that your Yong and Mountain's disciples are all hidden in the array? Yes. Ding Hong said with a smile, the polar magnetic field is a natural barrier, my Yong and Mountain's disciples are all hidden behind the polar magnetic field, but in a while, Senior will be able to see my Yong and Mountain's disciples. While speaking, there were many remnant magnetic force flying out from the space. Xiao Hua was also used to it. He knew that the closer he got to the core of Yong and Mountain, the more array would be destroyed. Seeing that the flying boat had flown halfway, another faint magnetic force rushed out and fell like a waterfall. The flying boat flew out of the clouds and was blocked, and similarly, an even fainter remnant fell into the flying boat. Xiao Hua glanced at it and didn't pay attention to it. However, when the faintly discernible magnetic force was less than half a foot away from Xiao Hua, Hong, a loud sound was heard, and the entire flying boat roared. Then, the clouds of the flying boat rushed out crazily, and the moment the remnant magnetic force came into contact with the clouds, it suddenly changed. The light curtain was more than 10 times stronger than before, and the flying boat outside the clouds also made a wong-wong sound. The 6 magnetic forces echoed the previous magnetic force and slashed towards Xiao Hua's head. Ha ha ha! Ding Hong's figure suddenly dimmed, and like a ghost, he quickly disappeared. His laughter was extremely mocking, however, he only laughed halfway, and immediately, like a duck that had its throat grabbed, he made a quack-quack sound, and couldn't laugh anymore. Moreover, his half-disappeared figure also stopped in the void, and gradually revealed itself. Catcher! At this time, the 6 magnetic forces were already closing in. Xiao Hua's body flashed with intense lightning as hundreds of electric arcs rushed out, blocking the magnetic forces. Amidst the intense rumbling, the 6 magnetic forces only managed to cut down 60% of the electric arcs before disappearing completely. How did you find out? Seeing this, how could Ding Hong not know that Xiao Hua had already discovered the abnormality? His hands and feet struggled futilely in the air, and he screamed with extreme unwillingness. -13. Chapter 41-28. You're just a group of lifeless walking corpses. Do you think this old man can't see through you? Even if you can exaggerate, you're still just a demon general. What kind of scheme are you trying to play in front of this old man? Xiao Hua sneered, his index and middle fingers joined together, and with a slight slash, a sword light flashed, and with a crackling sound, Ding Hong's armor was split open from head to toe, and a zombie with a pale face was revealed from inside the armor. This zombie's skin was ashen, his eyes were black, and strange demon patterns covered his entire body. His bare chest was still slightly beating, but when the armor was split open, it had already calmed down. Hehe, so what if you found out? Ding Hong seemed to be out of breath. He opened his mouth, which was filled with blood, and his tongue was swollen. He said in a somewhat inarticulate voice, after entering Yong and Mountain, "You will be a member of my demon clan. My demon lord will immediately turn you into a zombie. As Ding Hong's voice fell, a series of rumbling noises that were even denser than the beating of a drum resounded in the space around Xiao Hua. After every rumbling noise, a large greenish-purple ball of light would appear in the air. In just a moment, several thousand light balls had filled up the entire space. Within the greenish-purple ball of light, the greenish-purple magnetic force entangled with the purple magnetic force, emitting crackling noises. Outside the ball of light, a layer of space was leaking out from the magnetic force, causing fine spatial cracks to appear. In fact, amidst the rumbling, tens of thousands of humanoid figures were revealed behind these greenish-purple balls of light. These tens of thousands of human figures were not wearing armor, and each and every one of them was in the form of a zombie like Ding Hong. Moreover, their eyes were lifeless, and their robes were stained with black and red blood. Alas, needless to say, these must be the corpses of Yong and Mountain's disciples. Xiao Hua sighed. After death, they were used by the demon race. Sure enough, with the appearance of these zombies, the zombies raised their hands, and strange magical power gushed out from their bodies. Those purple light balls emitted an even more dazzling brilliance, and these brilliances overflowed from the light balls like tentacles, and the green brilliance and purple brilliance of each light ball gradually connected together. These Yong and Mountain's disciples seem to have their souls extinguish. Xiao Hua slightly frowned. It's just that there's no vitality in their bodies. Even if the demon race is exterminated, there's no value in keeping them. Gidge. A very strange laughter resounded in the surroundings, and then a naked beautiful woman flew out from the palace of Yong and Mountain. Although this woman's figure was graceful, and her body emitted a pink halo, the moment she appeared, all the zombies issued a low growl from their throats, and the formation was somewhat messy. It's just a demon monarch. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the woman's body. The woman's figure seemed to be transparent. Xiao Hua said and waved his two fingers again. A sword light appeared out of thin air. Pu. A sound like silk being torn apart rang out. Ding Hong's zombie was split in half. However, even so, no blood or internal organs fell out of the zombie, and the two halves of the zombie were still waving their hands and feet. Puff. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and a samadhi true fire flew out and landed on the two halves of the zombie. Gaga. Ding Hong's zombie was still screaming miserably, but in a few breaths of time, it fell into the air and turned into dust. Daoist Xiao is indeed powerful. That beautiful woman smiled slightly, and within 100 li, fist-sized flower petals appeared. Those flower petals fell down and gave off light, and the group of zombies couldn't help but clamor again, but the beautiful woman said, "You're actually proficient in Samadhi True Fire. That's out of my expectations." Hehe, you're the sect master of Yong'an Mountain? Xiao Hua smiled, and looked up and down, then narrowed his eyes and said, "Your appearance is really not bad. It's also out of this old man's expectations." That beautiful woman nodded and looked, then stretched out her hands to lovingly touch her own bump, and said enviously, "This old man is indeed envious of you humans, having such a beautiful body, but unfortunately, you don't know how to take care of it. Why don't you let my devil race take it? The devil race is the devil race, and the human race is the human race." Xiao Hua replied indifferently, "If the devil race takes over the human body, is it still the devil race? If the devil race takes over the human body, is it still the human race?" Gidge. That beautiful woman smiled beautifully. "Isn't it like this now? Zhong Lingxiu doesn't need to cultivate anymore, and she has endless life, and this old man doesn't need to wander around anymore, and also has such a beautiful body. Forget it." Xiao Hua sighed, "Seeing you, this old man also knows why all the cultivators sent here never returned. This old man doesn't want to hear anything else." As he spoke, Xiao Hua's aura was like a rainbow, and a thunderous roar surged out from him. You actually don't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex." That beautiful woman obviously didn't expect Xiao Hua to make a move just like that, and actually wasn't seduced by her beauty. "Ha ha." Xiao Hua laughed loudly. "This old man just walked out of the heavenly demon's fantasyland, and your cultivation isn't even worthy of carrying the heavenly demon's shoes." Heavenly demon? The gorgeous woman turned pale with fright. Seeing the thunderbolts around Xiao Hua's body rushing in all directions, She smiled coldly and stretched out both of her hands. Boom! Following her hands, all of the zombies urged their transcendence energy. Boom boom! Thousands of light balls suddenly exploded. Except for the outer layer of the 100 or so polar magnetic rays that rushed into the sky, all of the other purple-colored magnetic rays entangled together and fell towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's thunderbolts that soared into the sky were instantly cleaved clean by this unparalleled magnetic force. Hee hee! Xiao Hua sneered, and rubbed his hands, and rays of crystal light fell into the void. Rumble! The space within hundreds of miles shook violently, and bubbles appeared in the void. Countless electric arcs flew out from the bubbles, and it was as if dragons were fighting with the extreme magnetic rays. On the entire Yong'an Mountain, it was quite lively with fireworks. Damn it! Seeing Xiao Hua so powerful, the beautiful woman couldn't help but curse, and then she opened her mouth again, and said something, and an obscure sound fell in the air. Pa pa pa! But after every light ball, a zombie exploded, and after the explosion, a faint blood color rushed into the light ball. Swish! Inside the light ball, the purple and green extreme magnetic rays made a hissing sound, and then in the blood color, they actually condensed together. Woo! Following the fusion of the two different colored extreme magnetic rays, the roar and power in the entire sky suddenly became several times more accurate. Under the extreme magnetic rays, Xiao Hua's thunder was actually dissipated, and even more extreme magnetic rays bypassed the thunder, passing through the void to attack Xiao Hua. Hee hee! Xiao Hua raised his hand, and was about to take out the sword gourd, but suddenly, the cliffs around Yong'an Mountain suddenly emitted bright sparks, and a sound that was even more ear-piercing than the sound of thunder was produced. In the starry sky, like flying fish in the sea, there were many arcs of light, and these arcs of light completely enveloped the entire Yong'an Mountain, and within thousands of miles, there was a suffocating aura. Oh! Seeing this, Xiao Hua retracted his hand, and with a backhand slap, it really landed on his head. Puff! Clouds of 5-colored true qi gushed out, and turned into silk to protect Xiao Hua. PFFF PFFF PFFF. Like the sound of rain hitting a banana leaf, the magnetic force fell into the clouds, striking a thumb-sized dent, and then disappeared. Even if the magnetic force was like a waterfall, the clouds would only be split, but the 5-colored true qi within the clouds was endless, growing and multiplying endlessly. In front of this true qi that represented the power of life, the extremely powerful magnetic force was also defeated little by little. What kind of divine ability is this? The beautiful woman stood outside the extreme magnetic rays, and felt the power of life that was innately incompatible with her innate divine ability, and couldn't help but cry out in shock. Live as a hero, die as a ghost hero. Although I fell into the netherworld, I was unwilling to pass. Xiao Hua chanted, "How can you demons know the vitality of my human race? How can you demons touch the integrity of my human race? Demons are demons, humans are humans. Since there are no longer any living people in Yong'an Mountain, the so-called siege of the demon race is just you, a demon monarch. Why should this old man waste time with you?" After saying this, Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a golden light flew out of his Taoist robe, and the soaring dragon scissors turned into a golden dragon that pounced on the witch. How do you know that there is only me in Yong'an Mountain? Are you not afraid of hurting the humans of Yong'an Mountain? The beautiful woman was shocked again. She controlled the entire Yong'an Mountain with the power of a demon monarch, and for several years, nothing was leaked. Even the cultivators who entered Yong'an Mountain to investigate were confused by the scene on the surface of Yong'an Mountain, and all of them fell into her evil hands. But Xiao Hua, in the time it took to eat a meal, unexpectedly saw through her tricks. How could she not be surprised? While the beautiful woman was shocked, she waved her hands again and again, and blood-red devil chi fell into the air, and then from the void, groups of Yong'an Mountain disciples rushed out, and each of them waved their magic weapons, blocking in front of the beautiful woman. Whoosh! The soaring dragon scissors cut through the sky, not only cutting some of the extreme magnetic rays, but also cutting those zombie disciples in two. However, these zombies were the same as Ding Hong's corpse. Even though they were cut in two, they were still struggling in midair. Chimpage! Xiao Hua snorted coldly. This old man sees the mortal world with his wisdom. "This mountain is full of monsters, how can this old man not see it?" After saying this, Xiao Hua raised his hand, and with a buzzing sound, a sword light appeared in his hand, and then the sword light soared into the sky, and with a whoosh, it turned into a 1,000-feet-long rainbow that fell down. Damn it! Seeing Xiao Hua's endless tricks, and their power was great, the beautiful woman bit her lips, and then opened her mouth to spit out a mouthful of dirty blood. The dirty blood fell into the air, and immediately turned into a huge demon body. This demon body was full of blood, and streams of blood seeped out from the void and fell into the demon body. The demon body raised its hand and grabbed, and within 100 miles, layers of blood flowers were born, and a powerful restriction was tightly locked from the outside. Wasn't this the blood drop paradise that Xiao Hua was familiar with? -13. Chapter 41-29. Humph, you're just showing off your slight skill in front of an expert. Xiao Hua sneered and simply ignored the blood drop heavenly grotto. He still controlled the flying sword to descend. The sword was filled with an awe-inspiring aura. Wherever it landed, all of the evil energy would turn into ashes. All of the zombies would also be turned into dust. The so-called blood drop heavenly grotto was like a dark night being pierced by light. The flying sword went straight for the blood devil's body. Boom! The flying sword fell. Not only did layers of inscriptions rush out, it was like a warrior facing death unflinchingly fell into the devil chi. Even the sword tip pierced through the blood demon. As soon as the blood demon's imprisonment was broken, the blood demon's body was cut into 2 halves by the sword light. Not only that, the flying sword's tip pierced through the gorgeous woman's arm and cut off her left arm. How is this possible? Seeing the flying sword so sharp, the gorgeous woman turned pale with fright again. Your flying sword is actually not afraid of the devil chi? Swish. Xiao Hua did not speak. What answered her was the soaring dragon shears. The golden light borrowed the sword light and cut the gorgeous woman in half. However, even though the gorgeous woman was cut into 3 parts, whether it was her upper body, lower body, or even her left arm, they were all moving freely. Except for the splendor that prevented the devil chi from healing, there was no other change at all. Puff! Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a samadhi true fire flew out in the shape of a phoenix. It whistled and pounced on the gorgeous woman. Wherever the samadhi true fire passed, the zombies around 100 feet away were all turned into powder, and the magnetic force controlled by these zombies also turned into nothingness. Kill, kill, kill. The gorgeous woman tried her best to heal the body she was so proud of. At the same time, she urged more zombies of Yong'an Mountain to rush out and attack Xiao Hua. It seemed that she did not care about Xiao Hua's samadhi true fire. Tens of thousands of Yong'an Mountain disciples rushed out and attacked Xiao Hua with the help of Yong'an Mountain's magnetic force. Even someone as strong as Xiao Hua felt that it was strenuous. Granny, this devil clan is really weird. Xiao Hua was hiding inside the 5-colored true chi. Watching the 5-colored true chi being attacked by the several tens of thousands of disciples using their magic treasures, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He actually used his own strength to capture Yong'an Mountain. Moreover, he even controlled all the disciples of Yong'an Mountain. Although that Ding Hong from before seemed to have the strength of a devil general, he was most likely just a clone of this devil. If we want to kill all of these Eternal Peace Mountain's disciples, our Fortune Gate's disciples will have to suffer a lot. While Xiao Hua was thinking, the Samadhi True Fire had already arrived in front of the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman smiled coldly and opened her mouth again. Another blood demon flew out, revealing a sinister smile as it pounced towards the Samadhi True Fire. Sizzle. There was a sound like water falling into a pot of oil. More than half of the phoenix formed by the Samadhi True Fire was destroyed. However, just as the gorgeous woman's contemptuous gaze shifted away from the true Samadhi fire, she saw the extinguished phoenix let out a faint mournful cry, as if it was reborn from blood. Its broken body rushed past the blood demon and pounced in front of the gorgeous woman. Not good. Seeing that the blood demon's body was silently pierced through by the fire phoenix, the gorgeous woman turned pale with fright. Unfortunately, the remaining Samadhi True Fire had already flown out from the Samadhi True Fire and completely enveloped the gorgeous woman. Even though she hurriedly dismembered her body and fell into the void, the Samadhi true fire still entered the void and set her body ablaze. What kind of fire is this? The gorgeous woman's body emitted a blood-red light as she tried to extinguish the Samadhi true fire. Unfortunately, the blood-red light also began to burn inside the Samadhi true fire. The gorgeous woman screamed and roared. She really regretted not running away the moment she saw Xiao Hua's jade slip. Ao. The gorgeous woman's body was gradually burned away by the Samadhi true fire, and an almost inhuman demonic figure appeared from the Samadhi true fire. That demonic figure was still howling madly, Xiao Hua, even if you kill me, you will absolutely not be able to escape the annihilation of the magnetic storm. This is the Eternal Peace Mountain's last resort to perish together with the enemy. Even if the several 100,000 disciples of the Shundao sect came, they would still be annihilated. Seeing that the demonic figure was still being burned by the Samadhi true fire, Xiao Hua smiled coldly. He raised his hand and took out the sword gourd from his bosom. He said, "Just let yourself be burned quietly. I'll let you have a taste of 10,000 flames drilling into your heart. As for the ending of this old man and the Eternal Peace Mountain, you don't have to worry about it." Xiao Hua took out the sword gourd and raised his eyes to look at the sky. He saw that within the range of a few thousand li, the arcs of light that were previously leaping in the night sky had now transformed into a magnetic storm that was several hundred zhong tall. These magnetic storm covered the entire night sky. Not only did it block all the qi of heaven and earth, it also blocked Xiao Hua's vision. Including the Eternal Peace Mountain, the space of 10 million li was like the suffocating before the storm. It was terrifyingly quiet. A kind of desolate aura swept across the entire land. Ha ha ha. The demonic figure laughed madly in the flames. Hee hee. The group of Eternal Peace Mountain's zombie disciples still pounced towards Xiao Hua, as if they didn't care about the great calamity that was summoned above their heads, Shua. The sound of the magnetic storm came from an unknown place. This sound was like the beating of a drum and spreading of flowers, instantly covering the entire night sky. Immediately, all the magnetic storm surged at the same time and fell towards the Eternal Peace Mountain. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed, full of compassion. Then, he pointed at the sword gourd. Pu. The soul-slaying yuan light rushed out and flew straight into the night sky. Woo woo. The green and red color that had already fused into one separated again at this time, emitting a strange hissing sound. This green and red color turned into tens of thousands of light strands that fell on the magnetic storm in the night sky. Wang wang. Only, the magnetic storm was so vast that the light strands that supported it slightly trembled and emitted a buzzing sound. It seemed like it could break at any time. Quick. Xiao Hua's arms immediately turned into a crystal state following the heavenly dragon speech technique. Endless qi poured into the sword gourd. The light strands that were as thin as hair instantly thickened and shone with a dazzling brilliance. Along with this dazzling brilliance, the magnetic storm also slowly came to a stop. Then, rumble. In the originally silent night sky, the magnetic storm was once again attracted by the soul-slaying yuan light, emitting a thunderous sound. Then, Xiao Hua released his divine sense. Break. With a word, the already broken array on the Eternal Peace Mountain was destroyed by Xiao Hua's divine sense hammer. Kill. Along with Xiao Hua's command, the soul-slaying yuan light turned back in midair, driving the magnetic storm to scatter all over the Eternal Peace Mountain. Even some of the magnetic storm fell on the Eternal Peace Mountain zombie disciples around Xiao Hua. Ka. Faster than chopping melons and vegetables, all the disciples were chopped into several pieces by the magnetic storm. How is this possible? The demon that had already been burned into thin strands by the spiritual fire looked at all this in disbelief. How can you control the magnetic storm? How can you destroy the entire Eternal Peace Mountain in one fell swoop? You're really ignorant. Xiao Hua coldly looked at the last trace of the demon and said indifferently, "Haven't you heard of the two-wing spectrometer and the soul-slaying yuan light?" No. This was the final sentence of the demon. Along with the demon being extinguished by the spiritual fire, All the Eternal Peace Mountain zombie disciples that were not killed by the magnetic storm fell from midair at the same time. Those disciples that were hiding in the Eternal Peace Mountain also fell down. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over and activated the soul-slaying Yuan light again. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire Eternal Peace Mountain shook. This thunderous sound lasted for the time it took to drink a cup of tea before it gradually disappeared. Fellow Taoists. Xiao Hua's face was solemn. He patted his own head and released several doppelgangers. He ordered, Eternal Peace Mountain has already turned into a dead mountain. This is all the witches doing. We cannot let the witches' doppelgangers escape. I will clean up the mess and stop this magnetic storm. Fellow Taoists, please deal with these pitiful Eternal Peace Mountain disciples. Good. The doppelgangers' expressions were also gloomy. After all, these were hundreds of thousands of Eternal Peace Mountain disciples. Their lives disappeared one after another. After the doppelgangers cupped their hands and saluted, they flew to various places to deal with the corpses. Xiao Hua flew to midair and sat down cross-legged. He rubbed his hands and a spell landed on the sword gourd. The sword gourd let out a rumbling sound and gradually fell down. Then, the sword gourd let out a dazzling brilliance and turned into a ball of light. Woo-woo. The soul-slaying Yuan light that rushed out of the sword gourd began to shrink. As the spell was inserted, the soul-slaying Yuan light began to rotate and condense into a spiral shape. The magnetic storm that was attracted by the soul-slaying Yuan light also began to turn into an arc of light and fell into the sword gourd. Peng peng peng. The entire sword gourd let out a crisp sound like beans being fried. Xiao Hua chanted the heavenly dragon technique and the spell in his hands surged. He began to refine the magnetic storm that covered 1,000 miles of Eternal Peace Mountain into the soul-slaying Yuan light. After another bright moon and sparse stars, the entire night sky began to calm down. It was already more than 10 days later. Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. On the crystal-clear sword gourd, wisps of light appeared. These wisps of light were sometimes visible, as if they were about to fly out of thin air. An indescribable sharpness overflowed from these wisps of light. Xiao Hua withdrew his gaze from the sword gourd. He raised his hand and the sword gourd fell into his hand. Xiao Hua did not put away the sword gourd. He looked up at the doppelgangers standing not far away and said, Fellow Taoists, did you succeed? All the Eternal Peace Mountain disciples, their bodies have been destroyed. This little brother has checked them one by one. I will not let any of the witches' doppelgangers slip away, Devil Spirit Xiao Hua said with a smile. He flew forward and took out dozens of spatial rings and handed them to Xiao Hua. These are the orthodoxies of Eternal Peace Mountain. There are also some fragments. Since Eternal Peace Mountain is no longer here, it would be better for us to take them. Since Eternal Peace Mountain is no longer here, this little brother will take them all. Good. Xiao Hua nodded. Fellow Daoist has done a good job. Xiao Hua put away the spatial rings and looked at the abandoned Eternal Peace Mountain. He said, Fellow Taoists, since Eternal Peace Mountain has become like this, I'm afraid the Snow Chopping Gate is not much better. Sun Jian bringing the Fortune Gate's disciples to the Snow Chopping Gate won't be able to gain any benefits. I still have some matters to attend to in Eternal Peace Mountain. Fellow Taoists, you can go to the Snow Chopping Gate on behalf of me. Good. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua nodded. This kind of devil race that occupies a magpie's nest is abominable. This little brother can't wait to tear them to pieces. This little brother must go. -13. Chapter 4130. Fellow Daoist Longmai. Xiao Hua waved his hand and the sword gourd flew out. Fellow Daoist Greenrobe is building a transmission array in the Soaring Dragon mountain range and has no time to go to the Snow/Gate. I'll leave this spirit exterminating light to you. Yes, I understand. Longmai Xiao Hua took the sword gourd and nodded. I will use the spirit exterminating light to kill thousands of devil seeds. Inform Sun Jian when you go. If necessary, let him take the Fortune Gate disciples directly to the Snow/Gate. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, I know. Long Mai Xiao Hua nodded. He looked at the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua, Buddha body, and soul cultivator Xiao Hua and said, with these three fellow Taoists following, there shouldn't be any problem. Fellow Daoist can rest assured. Soon after, several clones bid farewell to Xiao Hua and went in the direction of the snow/gate. Xiao Hua stood in the air and narrowed his eyes as he looked at the figures of several people flying away. A meaningful smile hung on the corner of his mouth as he said in his heart, fellow Taoists, don't blame I for testing you. After all, I can still control you now. If I can't control you in the future and find out that you are disloyal, I'm afraid I won't be able to do anything to you. I hope you can work together in the snow/gate and don't let I down. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua released his consciousness. The netherworld origin power swept through the surrounding 10,000 miles of space and absorbed the souls of the Mount Yong'an disciples into the dark side of the space. After that, he took a closer look. His figure swayed, and an earthen yellow brilliance flashed in midair as his figure fell into the broken cliff. Xiao Hua didn't find an excuse to stay in the Yong'an mountain just to train his clones. When he was using the spirit exterminating light to refine the magnetic force, he sensed a strong magnetic force in the cliff. He guessed that there would be a magnetic force space under the cliff. Therefore, he stayed to explore the underground. There were many spatial faults in the soil beneath the cliff, and these faults were filled with magnetic forces. Sometimes, these faults were extremely large, and the magnetic forces were like a maze in the void. If one was careless and fell into a magnetic trap, one would be killed by the magnetic forces. Xiao Hua relied on his innate sense of direction and carefully avoided these traps that could kill people at any time. The deeper he went, the more Xiao Hua discovered that there were actually even more origin magnetic fragments beneath the ground. These fragments were of different sizes. The large ones were several miles long, while the small ones were only a few inches long. Every magnetic field naturally had two poles, and when the 5 elements of the human race arrived here, it was inevitable that they would be attracted by the magnetic field. Faced with magnetic field fragments that were several miles in size, even separation and reunion cultivators would have a headache, not to mention the numerous magnetic field fragments beneath the ground. It was only because Xiao Hua's demigod body had concealed the attributes of his body that Xiao Hua was able to safely reach a pitch-black void without being disturbed by the magnetic shards. Sensing the strong magnetic force in the void, Xiao Hua patted the space between his eyebrows and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. Ha ha! He saw that the magnetic force space in front of him was filled with red and yellow magnetic pole lines, and then he saw a huge oval-shaped sphere clearly divided into red and yellow. Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh out loud. Isn't this fire and earth magnetic force? The heavens are really helping me. After Xiao Hua finished laughing, he didn't hesitate in the slightest to fly to the extreme point of the fire and earth magnetic field and drip out a drop of his blood essence. After that, he flew to the 2 areas of the magnetic field and collected a large amount of fire marrow flame crystals and earth crystal yarrow milk before flying out of the magnetic field space. After leaving the magnetic force space, Xiao Hua looked left and right. His heart moved, and he didn't fly towards the cliff, but towards the place where the cliff extended into the starry sky. Out of Xiao Hua's expectations, there were even more spatial faults along the way, and there were also a lot more origin magnetic shards than before. Just as Xiao Hua's figure flew out from the bottom of the cliff, woo-woo, a wave of berserk chi waves stirred up the primordial magnetic force and madly pounced on Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua waved his Daoist robe, and everything within several li of him was confined. However, this confinement only lasted for a moment. Catcha catcha. Crisp sounds rang out. The confined space was actually broken by the primordial magnetic force and the wave of chi waves. Facing this chaotic power of heaven and earth, Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. He did not want to be enemies with it. His figure once again escaped into the earth. Although the wave of chi waves and the primordial magnetic force were still chasing after him, they were blocked by a spatial fault after a moment. Xiao Hua randomly escaped for a moment, then carefully avoided the magnetic shards, and once again rushed towards the ground where the cliff was. After escaping for half the time of a meal, Xiao Hua finally appeared on the ground. At this time, Xiao Hua was already far away from Mount Yong, and Xiao Hua looked at the mountain peak and the palace that existed in name only, and sighed. Mount Yong can borrow the fire and earth magnetic force and the magnetic force of space to create a sect. There must be something special about their cultivation method. Unfortunately, although the magnetic force is powerful, it is good at attacking the 5 elements, and it is difficult to cultivate it. Now, Mount Yong'an is besieged by the devil race, and hundreds of thousands of cultivators are actually under the control of a devil monarch. Although the devil monarch's pink skull is powerful, if the Mount Yong'an disciples diligently cultivate their Tao foundation and consolidate their Tao realm, they may not necessarily fall into the devil monarch's hand. From this, it can be seen that the Mount Yong'an sect's success and failure are due to the magnetic force R. I hope this Xiao can bring Mount Yong'an's orthodoxy to other places, and the new sect can learn from Mount Yong'an's tragedy. At this point, a divine sense suddenly appeared in the distance, and swept over like a wave crashing against the shore. It seemed to be a demonstration, and also seemed to be a warning. Xiao Hua let out an en sound and released his own divine sense. Buzz. The divine sense and divine sense collided together, setting off a wave of energy that could reach the sky. Soon after, they both retracted their divine sense. A melodious voice came from that direction. Is that Xiao Hua of the Fortune sect, Daoist Master Xiao Hua? With a touch of divine sense, Xiao Hua knew that the newcomer was a Tao transformation cultivator from the ruins, which was the so-called 9th grade essence Qi cultivator of the hidden immortal mainland. His strength was not inferior to his own. He was a little puzzled, and his figure went up to greet, and he answered with a smile, "That's right, it is this Xiao. May I know which fellow Daoist you are?" He. As he spoke, a cloud appeared in the horizon, dragging a long tail as it flew in front of Xiao Hua. That cultivator's figure was ordinary, and his face was like a full moon. He was wearing a sword outfit, and there was a flame-like sword mark between his eyebrows. The cultivator's eyes were a little red, and when he turned, there was a faint sword light reflected in his eyes. That cultivator sized up Xiao Hua, then cupped his hands and said, "Shandao sect's Yun Che, greets Daoist Master Xiao." "Ah, Yun Che. Shandao sect's sect Master Yun?" Xiao Hua was stunned. He naturally knew that the Shandao sect's Tao transformation cultivator was called Yun Che, but he didn't expect that this seemingly inconspicuous cultivator in front of him was actually the sect master of one of the 3 great sects in the ruins. He also didn't expect that he would see Yun Che on Mount Yong'an. Therefore, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He tidied up his clothes and cupped his hands and said, "Xiao Hua greets sect master Yun. Ari, this Yun has long heard that Daoist Master Xiao of the Fortune sect is not only righteous, but also brought the elite disciples of the outer realm to reinforce our ruins. Moreover, you are also approachable, and you are amiable even when facing low-level disciples. This Yun has long admired you, and now that I have seen you, you really live up to your name. This Yun is convinced." Yun Che sighed and hurriedly returned the greeting. Hearing Yun Che's words, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat, and he said inwardly, "Damn it, such a big sect master is actually greeting an outsider like this. Could it be a weasel paying a visit to a chicken?" Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand modestly. "Sect Master Yun is too kind. This Xiao is just an ordinary cultivator. How could I have the noble character and unquestionable integrity that fellow Daoist is talking about?" Speaking of noble character and unquestionable integrity, this Yun has to represent the 100 sects in the ruins and the assembly hall to thank Daoist Master Xiao and the Fortune sect's disciples for their contributions to the ruins. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, Yun Che hurriedly continued and bowed again. If it weren't for the Fortune sect's assistance in the southwest border, not only would the 8 great sects have been annihilated by the devil race, but a large area of the ruins would also have fallen into the hands of the devil race. This Xiao doesn't dare to claim credit. Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand to support Yun Che and said, "This is all the credit of the Fortune sect's disciples." Yes. Although Yun Che stood up, he still continued, "This Yun has long heard that the Fortune sect's disciples have lost nearly 50,000 disciples for the ruins. This Yun and the entire assembly hall are grateful to the Fortune sect for this." Hearing this, Xiao Hua smiled, looked at Yun Che and said word by word, "Sect Master Yun, You didn't come all the way from the assembly hall to Mount Yongan just to thank this Xiao, right? Hehe, of course. Yun Che laughed. Daoist Master Xiao is now the most famous person in the ruins, and the Fortune Sect's disciples are the most elite troops in the ruins to deal with the devil race. Not to mention this Yun, even all the sect masters in the assembly hall are willing to come all the way here to thank Daoist Master. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Sect Master Yun is too polite. You wouldn't have come to Mount Yongan for no reason, right? This Yun naturally didn't come to the southwest border just to find Daoist Master Xiao. Yun Che knew that he couldn't pretend anymore, and said with a serious expression, but since I didn't meet Daoist Master in the Soaring Dragon mountain range, and I met Daoist Master Xiao on Mount Yongan, this Yun can only meet Daoist Master Xiao. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Che thoughtfully. Of course he knew why Yun Che came to the southwest border. He had killed all the zombie disciples on Mount Yong'an. If no one knew, then it was fine, but if someone used it against him, he really couldn't refute. After all, no one saw the witch controlling Mount Yong'an, and the orthodoxy of Mount Yong'an had completely disappeared. Cough cough. Seeing the unfriendliness in Xiao Hua's eyes, Yun Che hurriedly coughed twice and said, the assembly hall received a message from the Fortune Sect, and knew that there had been no news from Mount Yong'an School for several years. In addition, in the last half a year, none of the disciples in the assembly hall had returned, so the assembly hall wanted to know what happened to these two sects. Originally, they wanted to send elders from other sects, but this Yun really has something to discuss with Daoist Master Xiao, so this Yun volunteered to come to Mount Yong'an. -13. Chapter 41-31. This Yun rushed to the Soaring Dragon mountain range and happened to hear from General Sun that Daoist had personally come to the Yong'an mountain range to investigate. Just like this Yun thought, this Yun chased after him without stopping. Yun Che looked meaningfully at the Yong'an mountain in the distance and said, however, it seems that Daoist has already found out the truth of the matter. This Yun doesn't need to waste any more time. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and told him about the Yong'an mountain range. When Yun Che heard that the entire Yong'an mountain range was captured by a devil monarch and that all the disciples were controlled by a beautiful woman, he was not particularly surprised. However, when he heard that all the zombie disciples were killed by Xiao Hua and a few other cultivators, his expression changed greatly. His figure involuntarily retreated a little and asked in a low voice, then, are those fellow Taoists the famous Patriarch Body, Patriarch Wansu, and Patriarch Wu? Xiao Hua nodded with a faint smile and replied, after this Xiao and a few other fellow Taoists killed all the zombies, this Xiao thought of the Snow/Gate. Therefore, this Xiao asked fellow Taoists to go to the Snow/Gate to assist General Sun Jian. This Xiao will stay here and wait for Sect Master Yun. Oh! When Yun Che heard this, he felt a little relieved, but then he was stunned again. Daoist Xiao, what level are you at? You can actually sense this Yun's arrival? What level are you at? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and smiled slightly. He waved his hand and said, Sect Master Yun is thinking too much. This Xiao is just joking with you. This Xiao has just escaped from the Devil Monarch's trap and is a little tired. This Xiao doesn't want to get involved in the killing. Hearing this, Yun Che hurriedly asked, Daoist Xiao, this Yun has an extremely important matter to ask Daoist Xiao. Oh, what is it? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Then, the Devil Monarch that has besieged you for more than 10 years, which one is it? Yun Che considered his words and asked with a kind of expectation in his eyes. Which one? Xiao Hua asked curiously, what does Sect Master Yun mean? This. Yun Che's face was a little red. He hesitated for a moment and said, this Yun means that this Devil Monarch has revealed his name. Do you know which Devil Monarch he is? Xiao Hua thought for a moment, shook his head slightly, and said, that guy seemed to want to say his name that day, but this Xiao interrupted him. Who has the patience to know that he is some devil emperor? At this point, Xiao Hua was also stunned, and said with some disbelief, Sect Master Yun, not to mention that you have fought with the Devil Emperor for several hundred years in the discussion hall and have never seen the Devil Emperor, you also don't know who the Devil Emperor besieging the ruins is, right? Although it was awkward, Yun Che had no choice but to tell the truth. That's right. That was indeed the case. At this moment, although we know which 3 demons are besieging the ruins, we still don't know which demon emperors are leading them and what their purpose is. As a matter of fact, Reverend, please don't blame me for ignoring the 10 major sects in the southwest border, and for sneering at the news that the Devil Emperor came to wipe them out. Our assembly palace is also in a dilemma. Because such news spread all over the sky, we're too tired to deal with it. There are too many fake news. Additionally, our army has encountered too many demon emperors. We really can't distinguish which news is real and which demon emperors are real. Then how many devil emperors do the discussion hall know? Xiao Hua didn't know much about military affairs, so he couldn't say much. 21. Yun Che blurted out. It was obvious that he had calculated this for a long time. So many. Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Yun Che said with a smile, of course it's not 21. If it's really 21, the devil race doesn't need to besiege the ruins, they can just kill their way into the ruins. After all, although the devil emperors aren't devil sovereigns, their strength is comparable to our human race's 7th stage Dao transformation, or even 8th or 9th stage Dao transformation. Even with Reverend Xiao's strength, you've been trapped by the devil emperor for more than 10 years. Dao transformation cultivators like us are simply not a match for the devil emperor. In that case, some of the devil emperors are devil monarchs in disguise. Or maybe the devil emperors have changed their appearance. Xiao Hua understood and asked probingly. Yun Che nodded, indeed. Some of the devil monarchs are very powerful, and their strength can reach the 1st stage of Dao transformation. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to distinguish between the devil emperors and devil monarchs in terms of strength. Also, as Reverend Xiao said, the devil monarch who killed the Eternal Peace Mountain by himself should be one of the 3 great devil races besieging the ruins, the zombie race. This devil race sucks the blood essence of humans. Once harmed by the devil race, they won't die immediately. Instead, they will become zombies without blood essence and consciousness under the control of the devil race. These zombies still have magic power in their bodies, and they can also activate magic treasures and formations to help the devil race kill our human race. Of course, the zombie race is the smallest of the 3 great devil races, but they are also the most difficult to defend against. Hearing this, Xiao Hua said, even if these zombies under the control of the zombie race aren't killed, they probably won't be able to come back to life, right? Of course. Yun Che knew what Xiao Hua was worried about, so he explained, although these zombies still have a little bit of consciousness, their true 3 souls and 6 spirits are no longer complete. Unless there's a great expert from the desolate immortal world who can recover their souls from the blood essence devoured by the devil race, the moment the devil race is killed, these zombies will gradually turn into real zombie race devils and harm the cultivators of the ruins again. Therefore, Reverend Xiao, you don't have to worry that killing the entire Eternal Peace Mountain will bring you any trouble. We've done the same in the past. Of course. At this point, Yun Che said embarrassedly, like Reverend Xiao, killing all the disciples of the Eternal Peace Mountain in one go has never happened before. However, Reverend Xiao, Yun Che said righteously, even if the discussion hall, no, even if the entire ruins makes things difficult for the Fortune Gate and Reverend Xiao, this Yun and the Shundao sect will stand on Reverend Xiao's side and stand with you against a common enemy. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Xiao Hua smiled. In his heart, he already understood that this Shundao sect's Yun Che naturally came here for official business. But other than official business, he must have something to ask of him. In that case, many thanks for sect master Yun's righteousness. Xiao Hua smiled and looked at the Eternal Peace Mountain in the distance. He said, however, when this Xiao was killing those damned zombies, I saw that the Eternal Peace Mountain's orthodoxy was not easy to pass down, so I had the intention of finding disciples to pass down. So, I took all the orthodoxies of the Eternal Peace Mountain and prepared to pass them down to disciples. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, Yun Che immediately raised his right hand and gave him a thumbs up. He praised, Reverend Xiao is really merciful, which is rare in the ruins. Not only did you let the disciples of the Eternal Peace Mountain rest in peace, but you also put in a lot of effort to find their inheritances. Who wouldn't admire you when they hear this? Especially when you're so decisive. If the news of the Eternal Peace Mountain's destruction spreads, there will definitely be wandering cultivators coming to snatch the cultivation technique Jade slips. At that time, even if my discussion hall wants to take the Eternal Peace Mountain's inheritance, it won't be possible. Speaking up to here, Yun Che thought for a moment and said, Reverend Xiao, please wait a moment. Right now, I'll inform the discussion hall first so that Reverend Xiao can take the initiative. As he spoke, Yun Che raised his hand and took out a magic treasure that looked like a pagoda from his Sumeru ring. Along with the incantation, a three-colored brilliance flew out from the magic treasure. After the brilliance spread out, a cloud of mist dispersed from the brilliance. Inside it was a space that was dozens of meters in size. At this time, a hall appeared in the space. Inside the hall, other than some decorations, there were some neatly arranged jade chairs. However, most of these jade chairs were empty. Only a few of the chairs in front had a few young cultivators sitting on them. Hey! Sect Master Yun. In the space, a handsome cultivator seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head to look at Yun Che and asked curiously, You found out about the news of the Eternal Peace Mountain so quickly? Sect Master Hua. Yun Che said with a smile, Admittedly, this Yun came quickly, but is there someone who is even more concerned about the safety of the Eternal Peace Mountain's disciples than this Yun and came earlier than this Yun? Oh, who? Could it be Reverend Xiao Hua? When Sect Master Hua heard this, he hurriedly stood up from the jade chair and said, Sect Master Yun, is Reverend Xiao beside you? Ha ha! Yun Che laughed and flashed to the side. He invited Xiao Hua over and said, Reverend Xiao, this is Sect Master Hua of the Heavy Flow Sect, who is on duty in the discussion hall today. Behind him are Sect Master Shangguan Ce of the Immortal Husbandry Sect, Sect Master Zhong Jing of the Hong Hall, and Sect Master Fei Ping of the Jing Fei Mountain. This one is Xiao Hua. Greetings, Sect Masters. Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. Inside the discussion hall, several other cultivators hurriedly stood up and tidied their clothes. Together with Hua Fei, they cupped their hands in greeting and said, We greet Reverend Xiao. Then, Hua Fei said, Our discussion hall has admired Reverend Xiao for a long time. When we heard that Reverend Xiao was besieged by the Devil Emperor, we sent several elders to assist the Fortune Gate's disciples in searching for him. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. Now that we heard that Reverend Xiao Hua has escaped safely, it is indeed worthy of celebration. This is excellent news for our discussion hall. While Hua Fei was speaking, dark clouds appeared in the air, blurring Hua Fei's words. Yun Che, who was standing beside Xiao Hua, hurried over and said apologetically, Reverend Xiao, the ruins is now besieged by the Devil Race. Not only is the transmission array controlled by the Devil Race, the other communication channels are also disrupted by the Devil Race. Today, I will report this matter to the discussion hall. When Reverend Xiao comes to the discussion hall, we will meet again. Good. Xiao Hua nodded and stood beside Yun Che. Yun Che walked to the front of the magic artifact and roughly explained what had happened on the Eternal Peace Mountain. In the end, he said, in order to kill the Devil Monarch's clone, Reverend Xiao and the Fortune Gate's disciples destroyed the Eternal Peace Mountain's zombie disciples that were under the Devil Race's control. As for the Eternal Peace Mountain's orthodoxy, speaking up to here, Yun Che's finger moved slightly, and the brilliance of the artifact flashed, causing the situation in the conference hall to dim. Yun Che's face was slightly surprised, and he asked loudly, What? Sect masters want the Fortune Gate's orthodoxy to be passed down? Yes, the sect leader's opinions are quite innovative. Fine, then this Yun will discuss with Reverend Xiao, and ask Reverend Xiao to stop this matter. -13. Chapter 4132. Sect Master Yun, Sect Master Yun. Hua Fei waved his hand helplessly. That's not what I meant. I'm just thanking the Fortune Gate's disciples. Alright, since that's the case, this matter is settled. Oh, what did Sect Master Hua say? I can't hear you clearly. Yun Che muttered to himself. Forget it, Let's not talk about it anymore. Since the Yong'an Mountain is already like this, there's no need to talk about it anymore. Daoist Xiao has already sent the Fortune Gate's disciples to the Snow/Gate. I'll follow Daoist Xiao. As he spoke, Yun Che reached out and extinguished the light from the magic treasure. When Yun Che held the magic treasure in his hand, he turned around and smiled. Daoist Xiao, you've seen it for yourself. Sect Master Hua is really indulging in fantasy. He wants the Fortune Gate's Yong'an Mountain to be passed down. However, due to the interference in the communication channel, I think he wants Daoist Xiao to bring the Yong'an Mountain out and impart it to someone. No matter what, I think the main hall's suggestion is good. I hope Daoist Xiao can consider it. Sect Master Hua's suggestion is very creative. This Xiao also feels that it is refreshing to hear. However, since it is the conference hall's request, this Xiao will reluctantly accept. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other and laughed loudly. Alright, the matter of the Yong'an Mountain is over. There's no need to talk about it anymore. Yun Che smiled and took out a jade slip. He raised his hand and pointed at it. The jade slip emitted a misty green brilliance, and within this brilliance, the images of 21 devil emperors appeared. Yun Che solemnly looked at Xiao Hua and asked, Spiritual Master, take a look. Which devil emperor is the one that trapped Spiritual Master? Sect Master Yun, please wait a moment. Xiao Hua said as his gaze fell on the images of the 21 devil emperors. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua shook his head and replied, The devil emperor I met is not among these 21. Ari. Yun Che sighed. At this time, he frowned and looked at the magic treasure in his hand. He knew that it was Hua Fei's message, so he ignored it and said, as expected, every time a devil emperor appears, he changes his body. This is the 22nd one. After saying that, Yun Che passed the jade slip to Xiao Hua. I'll have to trouble Spiritual Master to record the image of that devil monarch on this jade slip. Xiao Hua accepted the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. He immediately understood what was going on and recorded the appearance of the devil monarch on the jade slip before returning it to Yun Che. Then, he looked at Yun Che and said thoughtfully, since the devil monarch wants to trap the ruins, he must have a purpose. If it's just to kill the cultivators of the ruins, there's no need to use so many gimmicks. Every time they appear, they use different devil bodies. I think they're trying to hide their purpose. That's right. Yun Che nodded. This is also the reason why my assembly hall has been unable to figure it out for so many years. This is also the other reason why I wanted to meet Daoist Master. I wonder if Daoist Master Xiao has noticed anything strange from the perspective of an outsider. Soul. Xiao Hua replied without hesitation. This Xiao feels that the reason why the devil race has surrounded the ruins is for the souls of cultivators. Refining the blood demon artifact. Yun Che didn't believe him and shook his head. I also thought so at the beginning. However, the devil race's blood demon artifact is usually sacrificed with the blood of living souls. Every time there's a great battle, the cultivators of the ruins will also pay attention to the matter of blood sacrifice. However, after the great battle, the devil race didn't use the devil formation to refine the blood demon artifact. Even after so many years, we haven't seen a particularly powerful blood demon artifact. But Xiao Hua hesitated again. However, he only paused for a moment before continuing. The ruins are filled with wandering souls that can't fall into the yellow springs. For such wandering souls to be trapped in the ruins by the devil race, there must be a premeditated plan. Even if they haven't refined it now, it doesn't mean they won't do it in the future. Maybe they're waiting until they've killed enough cultivators and gathered enough wandering souls before starting to refine it. Ah! Yun Che was shocked. Could it be that what Liu Wuxie said is true? Misty School's Liu Wuxie, Sect Master Liu? Xiao Hua's eyes flashed as he asked curiously. Yun Che nodded and said, yes. Previously, I guessed that the reason the devil race surrounded the ruins was to refine the blood demon artifact. But later on, I didn't discover any abnormalities, so I started to think about other things. Sect Master Liu always believed that the devil race's goal was souls, because she used the Misty School's secret technique to detect more and more wandering souls in the ruins. Even the disciples of the various sects with different talents also felt that the wandering souls were abnormal. However, the discussion hall never took this matter seriously. Hearing this, Xiao Hua understood that the Dao sect's techniques in the ruins probably didn't have a secret technique that specialized in detecting wandering souls. Normal cultivators wouldn't be able to detect the increasing number of wandering souls in the ruins. And Liu Wuxie, who knew the secret technique, couldn't convince other cultivators, so the discussion hall didn't take the wandering souls seriously at all. Looks like I have to report this matter to the discussion hall as soon as possible. As he spoke, Yun Che naturally reached out his hand to activate the magic treasure. However, looking at the flickering light of the magic treasure, Yun Che laughed involuntarily and said, "Forget it, let's wait a little longer. I think that old bastard Hua Fei must have woken up and wants to go back on his word. We won't give him the chance to go back on his word." "That's fine too," Xiao Hua said with a smile. Since the devil race hasn't started using these wandering souls to refine devil artifacts for so many years, I think they won't in the near future. If we chase the devil race away, they won't have a chance at all. Sect Master Yun also doesn't need to report in such a hurry. Actually, Yun Che changed the topic again and said, although Daoist Xiao and Sect Master Liu both think so, but I don't dare to agree. Oh, could it be that Sect Master Yun found something strange? Xiao Hua asked curiously. I did find something strange. Yun Che replied, for example, the devil race besieged the ruins. Why did the teleportation formation in the ruins malfunction? If they wanted more cultivators, why didn't they make the teleportation formation work properly and attract more cultivators? Secondly, what exactly is the devil formation that besieges the ruins? If it's a blood sacrifice devil formation, why did the devil race only besiege and not attack? Why did they only seal the connection between the ruins and the outside world and not launch a large-scale attack on the ruins? Sect Master Yun's meaning is. Xiao Hua didn't quite understand. Yun Che explained, the teleportation formations in the ruins that lead to the cultivation world are either built in the void or in the starry sky. There are even many that are hidden extremely well. If they aren't very clear about these teleportation formations, it wouldn't be easy to seal these teleportation formations and even more impossible to destroy the communication channel. Xiao Hua understood and said with a smile, could it be that Sect Master Yun suspects that there are humans in the ruins who are colluding with the devil race? If there are, then they must be experts of the Dao transformation realm. Yun Che nodded slightly. And there are 120 sects in the ruins. I don't know which Dao transformation expert is such a scum. Cooperating with the devil race is tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. Especially cooperating with the devil emperor. I think there won't be such a stupid cultivator, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Yes. The key point is, if it's for wandering souls, there's even less need for human cultivators to cooperate with the devil race. Yun Che nodded. So following this train of thought, I suspect that the devil race besieged the ruins for so long for other purposes. Yun Che explained again. However, it's not convenient for me to explain this to other fellow Taoists in the ruins. It's not convenient for other fellow Taoists, but it's convenient for me. Xiao Hua was a little surprised. Because this matter involves the purpose of my Shundao sect's establishment in the ruins. It also involves some of the ruins' secret. If I were to leak this out, it would cause a rift between my Shundao sect and the other sects in the ruins. It would also cause the main hall to be dissatisfied with my Shundao sect. Yun Che did not hide anything from Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback and asked meaningfully, then why did Sect Master Yun tell me? Because this Yun came to find Daoist Xiao to form an alliance with the Fortune Gate. More importantly, I want Daoist Xiao to become my Divine Saber Gate's guest elder. Up until now, Yun Che had finally revealed his true purpose in coming here. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, saying, I'm just an outsider. I only came to the ruins because of an error in the transmission array. When the devil race is defeated and the devil formation surrounding the ruins is removed, I will leave the ruins with the Fortune Gate disciples. Since that's the case, what's the point of forming an alliance with the Shundao sect? There's no value in Sect Master Yun inviting me to be your guest elder. First of all, Yun Che looked at Xiao Hua and said sincerely, Daoist Xiao, don't be too optimistic about defeating the devil race. My ruins and the devil race have been fighting for several hundred years, and Daoist Xiao has been in the ruins for more than a decade. When has the devil race ever shown signs of defeat? The devil formation surrounding the ruins has never made any mistakes. Therefore, I estimate that even if this stalemate continues for another 1,000 years, there might not be any results. What else? Xiao Hua smiled. Could it be related to the Shundao sect's purpose in establishing a sect in the ruins? That's right. Yun Che nodded. My Shundao sect's founder was a disciple of the Supreme White Sect. He naturally came to this remote ruins to establish a sect, and this purpose is only known by each generation's Shundao sect master. And this purpose is very likely to be the same as the devil race surrounding the ruins. Oh. Then, what is your Shundao sect's purpose in coming to the ruins? Xiao Hua was even more puzzled. Yun Che smiled bitterly. If I knew, would I still need to discuss with Daoist Xiao here? Ah, you. Aren't you the Shundao sect's sect master? Xiao Hua was shocked. Of course I'm the Shundao sect's sect master. Yun Che's face was filled with shame as he replied, but my Shundao sect's purpose in coming to the ruins? I don't know when it was lost. When the previous generation's sect master passed the position of sect master to me, he only said this. As for the specific purpose, he doesn't know either. Damn it, there's such a strange thing. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I can't do anything about it. Yun Che replied, after all, it's already lost. Every generation of sect masters used their power to search for it, but there were no clues. And this time, the devil race surrounding the ruins made me think of this matter. After confirming it left and right, I'm even more certain that the devil race and my Shundao sect have the same purpose. -13. Chapter 41-33. So, Xiao Hua asked, Sect Master Yun is afraid that after the Shundao sect's goal is exposed, there will be a rift between the Shundao sect and the other sects in the ruins, so he wants to form an alliance with my Fortune Gate. He even wants me to join hands with you to resist the threats of the other sect. Indeed. Yun Che nodded. The Fortune Gate is now famous in the ruins, and Daoist Xiao's battle with the Devil Emperor has also spread far and wide. Especially Daoist Xiao's 3 friends, they have already become godlike existences in the ruins. If I don't form an alliance with the Fortune Gate, can I find anyone more suitable? Sect Master Yun, this is your ruins' internal affairs. Xiao Hua didn't relent. It's not suitable for my Fortune Gate to participate. Actually, Daoist Xiao doesn't need to worry too much. Yun Che smiled. The Shundao sect and the Fortune Gate's alliance is just to borrow the Fortune Gate's prestige. My Shundao sect may not necessarily start a war with other sects, and of course, we won't let the Fortune Gate's butcher's knife cut the human race's fellow Taoists. As for Daoist Xiao and his friends, we only need to intimidate the Misty School's Liu Wuxie and the Incense School's Mo Lianxi. Sect Master Yun has a good plan. Xiao Hua sighed, looking at the clouds in the sky as if he was thinking. Yun Che hurriedly smiled and said, It's nothing, it's just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. Please help me. I also don't dare to trust other human cultivators. If I don't deal with them properly, wouldn't I be walking into a trap? But I'm more suspicious. Xiao Hua said with a bitter smile. Based on Daoist Xiao's background, you're naturally the most suspicious. But Daoist Xiao's friends are the devil race's nemesis. No matter how stupid the devil race is, they wouldn't collude with their natural nemesis, right? That's true. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, expressing his agreement. Hearing that Xiao Hua had the intention to relent, Yun Che struck while the iron was hot. If the Fortune Gate and my Shundao sect ally, and Daoist Xiao becomes my Shundao sect's guest elder, my Shundao sect will definitely provide the Fortune Gate's disciples with a complete cultivation technique. Don't worry, Daoist Master Xiao. My Shundao sect's cultivation method is the real deal. It comes from the Taibai sect and is definitely 100 times better than that of the Yong'an Mountain. Also, if the Devil Clan is defeated in the future and the ruins regains its connection with the outside world, Daoist Master Xiao will have to use the star chart to return to the original realm through the teleportation array. Coincidentally, I have the Taibai sect's latest complete star chart, which can help Daoist Master Xiao. Of course, if Daoist Master Xiao feels that this is not enough, you can also state your conditions. Let's see if my Shindao sect can satisfy you. Is this alliance long-term or short-term? Is the defeat of the demons the limit? Xiao Hua asked. Of course, it would be best if it's a long-term one, Yun Che said with a smile. But if spiritual master Xiao feels that it's too long, a short-term one is fine too. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and felt that this kind of alliance wouldn't bring him any harm. It also didn't require him to make a move on behalf of the Shindao sect. It was just a deterrent effect. The so-called fortune sect's disciples all came from his space. If he felt that something was wrong, he could just put these fortune sect's disciples into his space. He was all alone, so what did he have to fear of the Shindao sect? Moreover, the ruins was the higher realm. Who knew if he would need the help of the Shindao sect or even the Taibai sect in the future? This alliance would only bring him benefits and no harm. Thus, Xiao Hua smiled and said, since it's an alliance, then it's good to be long-term. Why do you need to do something short-term? Great. Yun Che raised his right hand and smiled. This Yun knows that Daoist Master Xiao is the most forthright. Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. Sect Master Yun's conditions are very good, but they are all conditions for the alliance. If you want this Xiao to be a guest elder, these conditions are still not enough. Oh. Then what does Daoist Master Xiao need? If my Shindao sect has them, we'll definitely offer them to you with both hands. Yun Che didn't put down his hand, and asked with a smile. This. Xiao Hua was also a bit speechless. He needed the primordial spirit cultivation technique, and now that he had already obtained the inheritance of the 9 sects, these techniques might not be as high level as the Shindao sects, but he didn't need to cultivate them extremely well. These techniques were already enough. Moreover, the Shindao sect would also provide him with techniques. Suddenly, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up, and said with a smile, this Xiao is refining a kind of magic treasure. Currently, I'm lacking the innate mother of earth and innate mother of wood. I wonder if the Shindao sect can provide them? Hearing Xiao Hua's words, an extremely strange expression appeared on Yun Che's face, and he looked at Xiao Hua with a bit of disbelief. What's wrong? Xiao Hua rubbed his nose, and said with a smile, could it be that Sect Master Yun feels that this Xiao is asking for too much? No, Yun Che hurriedly explained. This Yun didn't mean that. This Yun only felt that. Daoist Xiao becoming my Shindao sect's guest elder was destined by the heavens, and not this Yun's idea on a whim. As he spoke, Yun Che took out an octagonal magic treasure that looked like a starfish from his spatial ring. That magic treasure even seemed to be alive, and its antennae slightly trembled. The magic treasure fell in midair, and a kind of water-like fluctuation spread out in all directions. Then, Yun Che took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua, saying, Daoist Xiao, this is this Yun's magic treasure, phaging. This jade slip contains the simple method of controlling phaging. Take a look at it first, and take away the innate mother of earth. This Yun isn't willing to give this magic treasure to fellow Daoist. Ah! How is that possible? Sect Master Yun really has the innate mother of earth. Xiao Hua was also dumbfounded. This was the innate mother of earth, and he had searched for so many years without any news. Today, he only wanted to make things difficult for Yun Che. How could it appear in front of him so easily? Hey! Daoist Xiao. You don't believe this Yun? Yun Che's tone carried a hint of blame, but his eyes were also filled with pride. No. Xiao Hua took the jade slip, and used his divine sense to scan it while waving his hand. This Xiao is too surprised. This is the innate mother of earth, a natural object, something this Xiao has always dreamed of. I didn't expect Sect Master Yun to take it out without even blinking an eye. Hee. Yun Che laughed. This innate Mother of Earth was obtained by this old man and Liu Wuxia in the Luo God Forbidden area 3,000 years ago. However, this object is not very useful to this old man's cultivation, and natural objects are not useful to ordinary disciples. If I didn't meet Daoist Xiao today, I'm afraid that in a few hundred years, this old man would have given this object to the Moon Palace. Then, thank you, Sect Master Yun. Xiao Hua looked at the jade slip, returned it to Yun Che, and thanked him. Yun Che waved his hand generously and said, "You don't have to be so polite, Daoist Xiao. From now on, you are a guest elder of my Shandao sect, and we are family." This Yun doesn't dare to boast too much, but to say that the Shandao sect is the leader of the Shandao sect is not an exaggeration. Moreover, my Shandao sect has many treasures, and what I gave Daoist Xiao is nothing. What's more, my Shandao sect is a branch of the White sect. When Daoist Xiao reaches the 9th level of the Dao transformation realm and rushes into the 9th level of the heavens, this Yun can recommend Daoist Xiao to the White Star realm of the White sect, which is more likely than the Moon realm. Then this Xiao thanks Sect Master Yun in advance. Xiao Hua smiled and looked at the Feijing that was swimming in the air. Yun Che understood Xiao Hua's meaning. He raised his hand, and the Feijing fell in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua grabbed it, and cast a spell. Aoo. The Feijing actually let out a series of howls, and then clouds like bubbles appeared on the surface of the Feijing's body. As the clouds boiled, the Feijing once again emitted an earthy yellow brilliance. The light was so sharp that Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel a stabbing pain when he looked at it. Profound green light. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He immediately took out his spatial ring, and his mind and divine sense fell on the light. Sigh. Even though Xiao Hua's divine sense was as condensed as steel, when it fell on the profound green light, it was still easily pierced by this innate treasure. Xiao Hua didn't dare to pay too much attention to his divine sense, and his mind also felt as if it was burning. When Xiao Hua clenched his teeth, the profound green light and clouds in front of him disappeared. Yun Che was dumbfounded. He looked at the ordinary spatial ring in Xiao Hua's hand and said in a low voice, "Xiao. Daoist Xiao, your spatial ring can actually store an innate Earth Mother." Ha ha. Xiao Hua smiled and put away the spatial ring. He nodded and said, "This Xiao's spatial ring is definitely not an ordinary spatial ring." All right. Yun Che thought that this was Xiao Hua's secret, so he withdrew his gaze from the spatial ring. He took out another spatial ring from his bosom and handed it to Xiao Hua, saying, "This is the condition that I promised Daoist Xiao. I ask Daoist Xiao to accept it. Millimeter, this Xiao thanks Sect Master Yun on behalf of the Fortune Gate disciples," Xiao Hua said with a smile as he received the spatial ring. But when he swept his divine sense over the spatial ring, he was stunned. He said in surprise, "Sect Master Yun, the things in this spatial ring seem to have increased by quite a bit." He he. Yun Che said with a smile, "This Yun has a request from Daoist Xiao, so naturally I have to show enough sincerity. Since Daoist Xiao is so sincere, this Yun will naturally give this extra to Daoist Xiao." Xiao Hua certainly wouldn't be polite with Yun Che. He took the spatial ring and smacked his lips, saying, "The Shandao sect is really rich and imposing. Daoist Xiao is wrong." Yun Che was also in a good mood. He said, "It should be our Shandao sect." Haha, yes. Xiao Hua nodded. "In the future, my Fortune Gate can also take advantage of the Shandao sect's glory." Yun Che smiled and flew into the air, saying, "Let's go. Daoist Xiao, accompany this Yun to the Snow/Slash sect and let this Yun see the bravery of the Fortune Gate disciples." All right. Xiao Hua followed behind Yun Che and said, "As long as Sect Master Yun leads the way, this Xiao is born with a poor sense of direction." Poor sense of direction? Yun Che was stunned and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Daoist Xiao is a Dao transformation cultivator. How can you not know the way?" Xiao Hua shrugged and said helplessly, "There's no other way. This is innate. This Xiao can't explain it clearly." All right, Daoist Xiao, please. Yun Che really hadn't seen a cultivator who couldn't even know the way. At this time, Yun Che's expression changed slightly. He smiled and took out the communication artifact again. Looking at the flashing brilliance on it, he said, "Old Hua is anxious." If this was a normal situation, this Yun would ignore him and not look for him again. Today, he kept sending messages, so he must have come to his senses. Saying this, Yun Che formed a seal on the pagoda-shaped communication artifact. The scene of the meeting hall in the clouds appeared again. Without waiting for Hua Fei to speak, Yun Che said with a smile, "Old Hua, isn't it the Yong'an Mountain's orthodoxy? Since you've agreed, don't go back on your word." "Yun Che," Hua Fei said in a bad mood, "when did this old man say that he would let the Fortune Gate inherit the Yong'an Mountain's orthodoxy? You just wanted to give face to Daoist Xiao. Of course, this is nothing. The Yong'an Mountain is located at the southwest border. Their cultivation technique is very strange and ordinary cultivators may not be able to cultivate it. If this matter is not brought up in the meeting hall, no one will think too much about it. Thank you, Sect Master Hua." Yun Che was in a good mood. He cupped his hands and smiled. "This old man is looking for you for another matter." Hua Fei waved his hand and said with a strange expression. Yun Che was surprised and asked curiously, "What is it?" When Sect Master Yun turned off the communication artifact, the meeting hall received news that the devil race is going to attack the Xianchao Peak. However, this news hasn't been confirmed yet. Hua Fei replied indifferently, "This will want Sect Master Yun to stay away from the Xianchao Peak." Unfortunately, Sect Master Yun's communication artifact has been turned off. The devil race is going to invade our Shandao sect. Yun Che frowned in disbelief. "How is this possible?" Hua Fei nodded. "Exactly. This Hua also doesn't dare to believe it, so I've already sent my disciples to investigate. However, if this news is true, then it's time for the devil race to reveal their true intentions. The final battle is probably not far away. -13. Chapter 41-34. Alright, that's why I'm looking for you. Sect Master Yun, you can make your own decision. After saying that, Hua Fei quickly closed the communication channel without any delay. Sect Master Yun? Xiao Hua reminded, it's better to believe it than not. Sect Master should return to the Xianchao Peak to take a look. There's no need. Yun Che waved his hand and said, if the devil race dared to invade my Shandao sect, they would have already invaded the ruins. If I'm not mistaken, this news is fake. We should go to the Snow/School. Xiao Hua didn't fly forward and said with a smile, Sect Master Yun, don't forget the tragedy of Mount Yong'an and the Snow/School. If the devil race really wants to attack the Shandao sect, it won't be good if Sect Master Yun doesn't stay on the Xianchao Peak. Hearing Xiao Hua's advice and thinking about the tragedy of Mount Yong'an, Yun Che was a little hesitant. He thought for a while and said embarrassedly, I just formed an alliance with the Fortune Gate. Now that the Fortune Gate is helping the Snow/School, it's not appropriate for me to not go. Besides, I promised Spiritual Master Xiao. Hehe, Sect Master Yun, you don't have to make it difficult. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Snow/School has a few good friends and hundreds of thousands of disciples. There shouldn't be any trouble. I just want to accompany Sect Master Yun to take a look. Actually, I have other things to do. Since Sect Master Yun doesn't want to go, I won't go either. Oh! Spiritual Master Xiao, what else do you want? Yun Che was grateful that Xiao Hua gave him a way out. He didn't think that Xiao Hua would give him an answer. Who would have thought that Xiao Hua would reply without hesitation, this Xiao has always wanted to visit the Misty sect in Ping River. Unfortunately, this Xiao had just arrived at the southwest border when I had a battle with the Devil Emperor. Now, I have come to Mount Yong'an. Now that I finally have some free time, I'm going to Ping River. Heh. A strange expression appeared on Yun Che's face. He blinked his eyes and said with a helpless expression, Spiritual Master Xiao, the moment you came to the ruins, you wanted to visit Liu Wuxia. Are you looking down on me and Mo Lianxi? Or are you after Sect Master Liu's beauty? That Liu Wuxia is even prettier than the sect leader of Yong'an Mountain. Xiao Hua was originally a little confused by Yun Che's expression, but after hearing Yun Che's words, the image of a beautiful woman's curvaceous figure unconsciously appeared in his mind. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Sect Master Yun must be joking." When this Xiao heard the name of the Misty School, this Xiao didn't know the name of the Misty School's sect master, much less that Liu Wuxie was a female cultivator. Looks like spiritual master Xiao really has some other secret. Yun Che smiled mysteriously and waved his hand. Since that's the case, this Yun won't ask anymore. Let's go. I was just about to take the teleportation array. Since you have no sense of direction, we can travel together. When we reach there, I will find a Shundao sect disciple to accompany you to Ping River. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands. Thank you for your trouble, Sect Master Yun. Then, the two of them moved and turned into rainbows in mid-air as they flew towards a certain place. More than 10 days later, on top of a towering mountain range, in a lush forest, Xiao Hua flew out with a female disciple wearing a clean daoist robe. That female disciple's appearance wasn't particularly beautiful, but her brows were filled with elegance and there was also a kind of purity in her eyes. As soon as the two of them flew out of the forest, that disciple respectfully pointed into the distance and said, "Senior Xiao, 1,000 miles ahead of us is the mountain gate of my fragrant cult. There are no teleportation arrays that can be used within this distance. I will have to trouble Senior to fly there with this junior." "No problem," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "There are many teleportation arrays in the ruins. It only takes a few days to travel a few million miles. The realm this old man is in doesn't have any teleportation arrays. If you want to travel 1,000,000 miles, you either have to use a flying magic tool or fly there yourself. This 1,000 miles is just a stroll in the park for this old man." At this point, Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, as if he had thought of something. The woman pursed her lips and said with a smile, "There are also benefits to not having a teleportation array. Frequently using the flying technique is extremely good for condensing true qi. I presume that Daoist's unpredictable divine ability is cultivated from these subtle aspects." "That's right, Bo Yun," Xiao Hua said. "In the realm this old man is in, there are often some flying demonic beasts that can be used. However, in this old man's ruins, not only are there no flying demonic beasts, there aren't even demonic beasts used by cultivators." "Sure." Hearing Xiao Hua's question, the female disciple of the Misty School named Bo Yun's expression changed slightly. She whispered, "Senior Xiao, please know. The ruins are in the cultivation world that belongs to the Moon God Palace. Moon beasts hate demonic beasts, so there aren't many demonic beasts in the ruins. Except for some low-level demonic beasts that can be hunted by my Dao sect disciples and obtained demonic cores, there aren't many demonic beasts that are particularly powerful. As for the Tai-Bai astral realm that is closest to the Moon God Palace, according to what this junior knows, there are many demonic beasts. The Dao sect cultivators there can cultivate together with the demonic beasts and fight together. There are even many wonderful legends." Sweat. Seeing a string of little stars appear in Bo Yun's eyes, Xiao Hua immediately understood what this little girl was thinking, so he coughed a few times and said, "Miss Bo, please lead the way." "Yes, this junior understands." Bo Yun stuck out her tongue and hurriedly urged the cloud to rush in front of Xiao Hua. However, it was only a moment before she made a fuss again. "Oh, this junior forgot to send a message to the sect master. Senior Xiao is such a famous cultivator, if I don't send a message, it will break the etiquette." Saying that, Bo Yun hurriedly raised her hand and was about to take out the communication talisman from the Sumeru ring on her finger. When Xiao Hua heard about etiquette, he felt a headache coming. He hurriedly stopped her and said, "Miss Bo, this old man hates etiquette the most. It's better if you don't send a message." Hihi, it turns out that Senior Xiao also hates etiquette. When Bo Yun heard this, her face lit up with joy. "Me too." When this junior was young, every time a senior came to visit Ping River, this junior had to stand in the air with a group of sisters to greet them. No matter if it was windy or raining, or if it was under the sun, I couldn't use my magic power. There were several times when my sister's skin was tanned. "That's right," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "a visit is just a visit, why make it so grand? Then this junior won't send a message." Bo Yun stuck out her tongue with a smile, "Otherwise, Once senior leaves, there might be young disciples slandering senior behind your back. It seems like you did this a lot when you were young. Xiao Hua smiled and pointed at Bo Yun. Hehe, I accidentally exposed myself, Bo Yun said with a bit of coquettishness, but when we arrive at the sect, senior has to explain for this junior that it was senior who didn't want to send a message. Let's go. Xiao Hua unfolded his daoist robe and a gust of wind wrapped around Bo Yun's thin figure. He said, with your dilly-dallying like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to fly home even if it's dark today. Gidge. Sensing her body moving like lightning, Bo Yun actually giggled. She knew that Xiao Hua was joking with her. 1,000 miles of land was covered in just a moment. When more than 10 large cities appeared on the ground in the distance, Xiao Hua knew that this must be the Misty School. Xiao Hua's figure stopped in the air. His gaze swept across the ground, and his eyes actually revealed a trace of surprise. Xiao Hua's figure was a boundless mountainous area. On the mountainous area, there were more than 10 cities with different shapes. Between these cities, there was a river that separated them. Above the river, there was a mist that looked like it was evaporating. Looking at these more than 10 large cities, they were built with large bluestone stones. The bluestone stones were engraved with runes. These runes emitted various colors of brilliance under the sun. Although it was faint, as the brilliance flashed, an obscure fluctuation attracted countless amounts of world's origin chi to descend. All of the large cities were shrouded in a layer of faint mist. Under the mist, there were tens of thousands of different forms of the world. Whether it was an endless stream of horses and carriages, or a weaving stream of people, it was noisy and bustling. Xiao Hua didn't open his illusion breaker eyes. He only used his divine sense to sweep across. He had already sensed that the world's origin chi within a few thousand miles was abnormally dense. Not only was the world's origin chi of water flowing on the ground like water dragons, even the large cities had a dense earth origin chi of heaven and earth like a black turtle nailed to the ground. A kind of majestic feeling was born out of thin air, as if a giant mountain was standing in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Sigh. Xiao Hua's Misty School's sect protecting array actually gave him the feeling of seeing a mountain peak on the flat ground. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He thought to himself, the Misty School's array is indeed powerful. This water flow should be a transformation of the innate divine restriction array. Those large cities are also the structure of the Earth Clan Soul Condensing Array. Of course, these two arrays can't be considered complete. They aren't even 30% of the Divine Restriction Array. However, the Misty School was able to ingeniously combine these two arrays. It is really rare. The Misty School is indeed worthy of being one of the 3 great schools of the ruins. I just don't know, is this Misty School related to the Misty School in this Xiao's memory? Boom boom boom. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking, dazzling sparks flew out from the large cities at the same time. These sparks landed in the air and transformed into the words "Welcome Spiritual Master Xiao to the Misty School." Then, woo-woo. There was a burst of sobbing sound of water. Water vapor flew out from the Ping River. This water vapor rushed into the air and burst open. Within 100 miles, petals condensed from water vapor flashed under the sunlight, sparkling and translucent. Ari, in the end there is still a guard of honor. Seeing this, how could Xiao Hua not know that this was the Misty School welcoming him? He also understood in his heart that since he left the Misty School's teleportation array, even if Bo Yun didn't send a message, how could the disciple guarding the teleportation array not report his whereabouts to the school? Moreover, he didn't see any patrolling disciples along the way, so of course they were deliberately avoiding him. Following a burst of music from the central city, a waterfall that was several miles long flew out from the city. This waterfall was like a grassland blown by the spring wind. Grass and flowers were born from the waterfall and quickly spread out in the air. In the blink of an eye, it landed below Xiao Hua's feet. At the same time, a voice that was even more beautiful than the music came from the waterfall. Misty School's Liu Wuxie greets Spiritual Master Xiao. -13. Chapter 41-35. Then, without waiting for the sound to dissipate, countless grass and flowers flew out from the waterfall and gathered in the air to form a human figure more than 10 jong tall. The human figure slowly shrank. The grass turned into white skin, and the flowers turned into a spring beauty. In just the blink of an eye, a charming woman wearing colorful clothes appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Her lips were slightly curled, and she had a faint smile on her face. The woman's gaze landed on the somewhat dumbstruck Xiao Hua's face. Then, she smiled sweetly. This smile was unparalleled. It was as if a group of butterflies had spread their wings from the corner of the woman's eyebrows, taking away the color of the entire world. Behind the woman, the flowers and plants were moving and clouds were being born. Some men and women of different ages were dressed in different clothes. Their faces were filled with curiosity as their gazes fell on Xiao Hua's body. Sect Master Liu. Xiao Hua was a little absent-minded, and almost stuttered. But in an instant, he shook his head and came to his senses. A wry smile appeared on his face as he cupped his hands and said, "Fortune Gate Xiao Hua greets Sect Master Liu. But Sect Master Liu's joke is a little too big. Hee hee." The woman's lips trembled slightly as she replied, "I know that Daoist Xiao doesn't like etiquette, so I didn't dare to make it public. But since Daoist Xiao is coming to my Misty School for the first time, how can I not leave a deep impression on Daoist Xiao?" "All right." Xiao Hua smiled. "Sect Master Liu has left a deep impression on me. I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to forget." "That's good." Liu Wuxia stretched out her hand, and a cloud-like handkerchief appeared, covering her mouth. She raised her other hand and said, "These are my Misty School's elders and hall masters." When they heard that the famous Daoist Xiao was coming, they were all excited and came out to welcome him. "I had no choice but to bring them here. I am Xiao Hua, greetings fellow Taoist." Xiao Hua naturally couldn't be negligent, and greeted everyone with a smile. "We greet Daoist Xiao." Seeing that Xiao Hua was extremely humble, which was very different from his reputation, the group of cultivators were also happy and bowed. "First, a simple greeting. I'll continue later." Liu Wuxia's voice sounded very graceful, but her tone was unquestionable. "Spiritual Master Xiao, please come with me. Sect Leader Liu, please." Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a series of chimes rang out. The flowers and plants in the air swayed, and Xiao Hua, Liu Wuxia, and the rest landed in the center of the city. Under the clouds and mist, the scenery in the city was naturally different from what one could see outside. The palaces, pavilions, and flowers were all incomparably exquisite. The male and female disciples flying around in the scenery were all dragons and phoenixes among men. They were even more beautiful than in a painting. When Xiao Hua landed, there was another huge palace. There weren't many decorations in this palace, and there weren't any ordinary tables. There were only all kinds of spirit herbs and spirit flowers. Even the walls of the palace were painted with countless strange flowers and plants. It was really a kingdom of flowers. Looking at the sky above the palace, there was a rising sun hanging high in the sky, and layers of clouds floating in the sky. A cool breeze brushed past one's face, and bursts of flower fragrance assailed one's nostrils. Xiao Hua looked around and sighed. "Sect Leader Liu, this Xiao has guessed countless times what it would be like to enter the Misty School, but I've never thought that the Misty School would be like this." "Oh, why did Spiritual Master Xiao guess countless times? Could it be that Spiritual Master Xiao has long wanted to come to my Misty School?" Liu Wuxia's two innocent eyes stared at Xiao Hua with a puzzled expression. Xiao Hua smiled. "Indeed. I won't hide it from Sect Leader Liu. This Xiao also has a Misty School in this Xiao's memory. However, this Xiao doesn't remember what that Misty School looks like. So when this Xiao heard that there was a Misty School in ruins, this Xiao naturally wanted to come and visit Sect Leader Liu. So that's how it is." Liu Wuxia nodded and asked probingly. "But, looking at Spiritual Master Xiao's expression, it seems like you're disappointed." "There's disappointment, but there's also a pleasant surprise." Xiao Hua smiled. Pingjiang's Misty School doesn't seem to be the Misty School that this Xiao was looking for. However, Sect Leader Liu's Misty School has opened this Xiao's eyes. "Hehe, that's good." Liu Wuxie covered her mouth and smiled again. She looked around and said, Spiritual Master Xiao, other than coming to see if my Misty School is the Misty School in Spiritual Master Xiao's memory, is there anything else? Naturally, I want to exchange my cultivation with sect leader Liu. I hope that sect leader Liu's experience can give this Xiao some enlightenment. Xiao Hua smiled and replied, It's inevitable that we'll interact with each other. I heard that Spiritual Master Xiao came from outside the realm, so I've always wanted to visit. Later, I heard that the Fortune Gate's disciples are brave and good at fighting, much stronger than the disciples of Ruins, so I'm even more envious. Liu Wuxie said again. However, before that, the elders and hall masters have many questions that they want to ask Spiritual Master Xiao. I hope that Spiritual Master Xiao will not be stingy with his guidance. After saying that, Liu Wuxie waved her hand and dozens of flower buds appeared in the hall. These flower buds bloomed, revealing a pink jade chair. Liu Wuxie smiled and said, Spiritual Master Xiao, please sit. Sect leader Liu, please. Xiao Hua politely raised his hand and the two of them sat down. The elders and hall masters of the Misty School also sat down. Xiao Hua looked around and said with a smile, Hehe, fellow Taoists, please speak. This Xiao will tell you everything he knows. Spiritual Master Xiao, which realm did you come from? A woman hurriedly said, This concubine heard that Spiritual Master came from the 3 continents, but this concubine searched the Moon God realm, Taibai Star realm, Gungri Morning realm and other nearby realms, but there seems to be no record of the 3 continent. Haha, fellow Daoist's first question has stumped this Xiao. Xiao Hua said with a smile. This Xiao was originally teleporting, but the teleportation channel suddenly changed. This Xiao came out of the collapsed teleportation channel with great difficulty, but was already in the ruins. This Xiao doesn't know where the 3 continents are, and where the ruins are. Why is this Xiao doing his best to fight against the devil race with the disciples of ruins? It's because I want to quickly find the teleportation formation to return to the 3 continent. Ha ha ha, so Spiritual Master Xiao is already lost. An even prettier female cultivator said with a smile. However, if Spiritual Master Xiao doesn't know where the 3 continents are, how can you find the teleportation formation? Without the teleportation formation, with Spiritual Master Xiao's strength at the 9th stage of the Dao transformation realm, it's impossible for him to not get lost while flying in the starry sky. Yes, yes. Xiao Hua nodded and said with a smile, This Xiao knows all this, but it's hard to leave one's homeland. If there's a trace of opportunity, this Xiao will look for it. Even if this Xiao fails, this Xiao will still try. Also, an older male cultivator asked again, Spiritual Master Xiao, it said that when you came to the ruins, you seemed to be alone. How did you suddenly get 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples? What kind of spatial magic treasure do you have in your hand that can hold so many people? This. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, then raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. He said with a smile, This Xiao's magic treasure is called Kunlun mirror? Clear sky mirror? It's really this supreme treasure? How is this possible? Before Xiao Hua could speak, the group of Misty School cultivators couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Even Liu Wuxie's eyes revealed a strange look. After the group of cultivators recovered from their shock, they looked at Liu Wuxie, obviously afraid of something. Liu Wuxie raised her hand and pointed at the ground. Countless tender leaves flew out and turned into a green whirlwind that covered the entire hall. Then, Liu Wuxie asked softly, Spiritual Master Xiao, do the 3 continents belong to the Wenchang Sage Domain or the Heaven's Equal Dao realm? You. Which supreme treasure is this? Where did you get it from? Wenchang Sage Domain? Heaven's Equal Dao realm? Xiao Hua was stunned. He knew where these 2 realms were. He smiled and said, Everyone is wrong. Ai's magic treasure is the heaven-raising mirror. It has nothing to do with the Kunlun mirror or the clear sky mirror. As he said that, Xiao Hua circulated his magic power, and the Kunlun mirror emitted a faint yellow light. Oh! Looking at the Kunlun mirror's light, Liu Wuxie's eyes revealed a look of understanding. She smiled and said, So it's not a divine item like the Kunlun mirror or the clear sky mirror. You really gave I a fright. That's. Xiao Hua kept the Kunlun mirror and said with a smile, I's just a Dao actualization realm cultivator. How could I get such a divine item? But. Xiao Hua's tone changed again, and he said curiously, in my 3 continents, there seems to be a legend of the Kunlun mirror and the clear sky mirror. But these 2 divine items seem to be 2 different things. Everyone, why did you call out 2 names when you saw this inconspicuous magic treasure of mine? This. The group of cultivators hesitated again. Liu Wuxia thought for a while and said with a smile, from what I know, the Wenchang Sage Domain has the clear sky mirror, and the Heavens Equal Dao realm has the Kunlun mirror. These 2 are supreme treasures of the realm. But, these 2 supreme treasures are exactly the same. Even their power and effects are the same. The 2 realms have caused many waves because of this. Daoist Xiao suddenly took out a spatial magic treasure that is similar to these 2 supreme treasures. Naturally, I was shocked. Sigh, Daoist Xiao, I really hope that you came from these 2 realms. Just by relying on the supreme treasures of the realms, I'm afraid that you can scare the devil race away. Unfortunately, my ruins is just an extremely remote corner of the cultivation world. I see. Xiao Hua smiled. Although he understood why the cultivators of the Misty School called the Kunlun mirror by 2 names, he was even more confused. In the hidden immortal continent, the Kunlun mirror was clearly the Kunlun mirror, and the clear sky mirror was clearly the clear sky mirror. Although Xiao Hua had never seen what the clear sky mirror looked like, looking at Sun Jian's appearance, these 2 magic treasures were probably different. Of course, what made Xiao Hua even more confused was that he clearly had the Kunlun mirror in his hand, and the immortal emperor of the immortal palace also had the clear sky mirror. Why were there also the clear sky mirror and the Kunlun mirror in the Wenchang Sage Domain and the Heavens Equal Dao realm? Could it be that the one in his hand was a fake? Forget it, forget it. I don't care if it's fake or not. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua smiled. He didn't have any foundation. Obtaining such a magic treasure was already extremely lucky. Who cared if it was real or not? 13. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,